Recording in progress.
I'm going to call the Thursday, June 18th business meeting of Narberth Borough Council to order. We'll begin with the pledge. Mayor Edwards.
Okay, here we go. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
And this up, we call the roll.
President Bush?
Here.
Vice President Rickards? Here. Councilmember Simonson?
Here.
Councilmember Borough? Here. Councilmember Spear?
Here.
Councilmember Gaudini?
Here.
Councilmember Stratton?
Here.
And Mayor Dana Edwards.
Here.
All right. So I know a lot of folks are here to talk about the stormwater bump outs. I am just going to read a memo that I sent out to council talking about, not all council members were here when we came up with our pollutant reduction plan mandated by the state, which is where the plans for the bump outs came from. So the state of Pennsylvania requires communities that have stormwater outflow into impacted waterways, polluted waterways, to gradually reduce the amount of sediment from stormwater runoff over time. So different parts of Narberth drain into different waterways. The relevant waterway that is driving the borough's responsibilities is the East Branch of Indian Creek, which flows through Narberth Park and Elm Grove Park and then into Shortridge and eventually into Philadelphia. So we were required to submit a 5-year plan to the state of Pennsylvania for approval, laying out specific projects to implement to mitigate stormwater runoff into Indian Creek. The plan was a major focus of the Infrastructure Committee when I joined council and I was chair. We submitted this plan to the state in 2020. It was approved and our permit issued in 2021. The document is publicly available on our website. When we were preparing this plan, our engineering firm considered many options for stormwater mitigation. Lower Merion has fulfilled its requirements to the state through a lot of stream bank and park improvement projects. In fact, 100% of their projects are stream bank and park improvements. This is an appealing prospect, but unfortunately, Narberth is not able to pursue similar projects for a variety of reasons. So Sabine Park drains into a different watershed. The site of Elm Grove Park, which we did not own at the time, is considered PennDOT's responsibility and not ours. Narberth Park has Indian Creek running through a culvert. Daylighting the creek was considered, but it was ultimately rejected because it would disrupt the current uses of the park and would not be safe for sports, and it would also be extremely expensive. Since projects in the parks were ruled out, we looked at a variety of improvements primarily at street level, and bump outs were considered the top option because of their general attractiveness, the ability to be deployed throughout the borough wherever we had an issue, their effect on traffic calming and pedestrian safety, and their cost effectiveness and the possibility for grant support. We have been able to secure substantial grant funding for multiple rounds of bump outs, and we expect to be able to secure grant funding this year as well. While the grants don't include design costs, for construction we have received $160,000 in grants for our existing 8 bump outs, and we paid $43,700 out of pocket. There have been questions raised about what other sorts of things we could build. The menu for near-term projects is what is laid out in our PRP. It's in tables 3.4 and 4.1 of the PRP, if you'd like to look online. To receive credit for a project that is not in our PRP, we would need to formally amend the PRP and receive state approval for the change, which is not guaranteed, and which would be a lengthy process involving significant engineering time. As a result, our current intention is to reevaluate these projects when it comes time to submit the next iteration of the PRP, which DEP is expected to roll out within the next couple of years. So the borough has received credit for several stormwater projects that were completed during recent commercial developments. We already also installed a rain garden behind the library. There are 2 significant unbuilt projects in the PRP that are not bump outs. One is a bioswale along Haverford Avenue between North Essex and Conway. This is an estimated $150,000 project that would result in the loss of numerous parking spaces along Haverford. It is rated 6,200 pounds a year in sediment reduction which I think are the bump outs that we're currently looking at are in the 2,500 square foot range, so this is a little more than 2 bump outs in terms of reduction value. The other proposal is a manufactured inlet filter for the municipal parking lot next to Borough Hall. While it would not affect parking, the estimated cost is $50,000 for a project for 1,400 pounds a year in pollutant reduction, which is less than one of the bump outs we're considering this year at a significantly higher cost. This year's project would put us well on our way to accomplishing the goal we set out for the state, and we're well under budget due to the emphasis on bump outs. The original cost estimate for the borough was around $675,000, and the spending for the borough so far is well under $100,000 because of the grant support we've received. All right, thanks for indulging me on that, but just some information, and we'll be putting this out in a more public form on the website at some point. Mr. Mayor.
Yeah, we have, I don't know if I can do this, but is there a way we can move number 7 to be right before me? Just, we have a gentleman from Harrisburg, and I'd like to get him back on the road if we can, to be honest.
It'll just be a few minutes. Okay, does council object to, the mayor's asking for us to move the agenda. Number 7 is a presentation of award. Anybody object?
Nope.
All right, in that case, thank you. It's on the Edwards. And we have Mr. Adams from the PA Chiefs of Police Association.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you.
Hold on a
Appreciate
second. Well, we may have to do, we have to
Right,
take a vote.
legally, we have to have a motion and a second to amend the order of the agenda.
Okay, I'll take a motion.
I second.
A second, any discussion?
I don't know, Michael's made the motion, or seconded, just for the meeting minutes. Thank you.
Apologies. All right, any discussion? All right, a motion to amend the agenda so that the presentation of award comes directly after the president's comments. All those in favor? Okay. For the record. Thank you. Once again, Mr. Adams, I appreciate it.
Thank you again, and thank all of you for that motion. As he said, I'm Jim Adams. I'm the Pennsylvania Chiefs of Police Accreditation Program Coordinator, and it's my honor to come before you tonight and publicly present the certificate for your police department attaining accredited status. But before I do that, I want to make sure that everybody recognizes all the work that went into this and what this represents. And I'll try to make it brief because I know you have a lot of other business to conduct. But back in the 1990s, a statewide study was done reviewing police department policies. And what was discovered, first of all, the majority of police departments didn't have policy. The ones that did, they were disparate. There was no commonality between the policies. So the Pennsylvania Chiefs of Police got a grant from the Pennsylvania Commission on Crime and Delinquency to develop an accreditation program. And they put together a team of law enforcement professionals from all 4 corners of Pennsylvania, elected officials, solicitors, district attorneys, police chiefs, and the list goes on and on. And they worked for over 2 years developing best practices. We call them standards, but they're best practices in providing professional law enforcement services to all police department customers. And when we talk about police department customers, it's not just victims, it's not just witnesses, it's also providing professional police services to our customers that we end up arresting. Okay, they deserve to be treated with respect and within the confines of both the state and the federal Constitution. So fast forward in July of 2021, our program rolled out. The Pennsylvania Law Enforcement Accreditation Commission publicly rolled out our accreditation program. So it's been up and running now for 26 years. We currently have 209 police departments accredited. Sounds like a big number, but if you add up the total number of municipal police departments in the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania, that number is around 1,100. Okay, and that doesn't take in the colleges, universities. There's a lot of other legitimate law enforcement entities that don't fall under that municipal police definition. So anyhow, so that's about 20%. And the process is, and what your police department went through, it's about 3 phases is what we call it. When they first make the decision to pursue accredited status, the first thing they do is take a look at our standards. We currently have 140 standards or 140 best practices that a police department has to have policy, written directives, and comply with as far as their operation. And that runs anywhere from handling petty cash the whole way up to the use of deadly force and everything in between. But when I say we have 140 best practices, that's a little bit of a misnomer, because a lot of those 140 best practices are actually bulleted out, and there's individual best practices embedded in them that they have to also have policies addressing those. When you add them all up total, this represents about 370 best practices of providing professional law enforcement services that your police department can show that they comply with. So after they take a look at all of those standards, they compare it with their existing policy manual, which most police departments, it requires writing a lot of new policies, areas that they didn't address by policy, and tweaking or modifying the policies that they do have so that they directly correlate with our professional standards. You can have the best policy manual in the world. If it's sitting on the shelf and nobody is abiding by it, it really doesn't do you much good, and probably actually creates more liability instead of less. So the other major component of our program is, for each one of those standards, your police department has to show what we call 2 proofs of compliance, 2 situations that show that they're actually following their policy and procedures and all those best practices. The first time through, once they start working on getting all the policies in place, and they sort of have a target date of when they're going to go through the actual accreditation process, is when they start pulling proofs. The proofs have to be within about 12 to 18 months before our assessment team show up. So they have to be reasonably fresh. So now they go through the process. We send 3 assessors here to spend 2 days with your police department, reviewing all the policies, comparing them to our best practices, to our standards, doing interviews with your police officers, doing ride-alongs with your police officers. It's quite an extensive process. And after they're done, they write up a very lengthy report, submit it to our Pennsylvania Law Enforcement Accreditation Commission, which is made up of 20 police professionals from all 4 corners of Pennsylvania, for them to review. And then Chief String and his accreditation manager, along with our assessment team leader, has to come before the commission and present the report and give all of our commission members the opportunity to ask your police chief any questions they have about the report, about the police department. And then ultimately they voted unanimously to grant accredited status to Narberth Borough Police Department. This is not a certificate for life. In fact, I mentioned we have 209 accredited police departments right now. In the course of our program, since 2001, we've actually accredited 245 police departments. We lose about 1 or 2 every year for various reasons, because it's still a lot of work. Now that your police department's accredited on an annual basis, within 30 days of their anniversary date, they have to submit a very lengthy annual report to my office. And that lengthy annual report basically is a self-assessment that your police chief attests that they're in compliance with all those standards. On the 3rd year, we're going to send a new team of assessors here and put your police department through the drill again. It's a 3-year program or a 3-year cycle, and sometimes we lose police departments on one of those 3-year cycles for various reasons. People ask, what's the advantage of being accredited? Well, there's a lot of examples. I'll be brief. I know this is a little dated, but I think it's an excellent example. When the unfortunate situation happened out in Minnesota with George Floyd, we had 8 of our state legislators come up with the 8 Can't Wait initiatives, and maybe some of you heard about them. Some of our state legislators come up with 8 initiatives that they said all police departments in the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania need to adopt these policies and adhere to them. Well, guess what? All the accredited agencies already had solid policy addressing each one of those 8 Can't Wait initiatives. They were great initiatives, and I'm not criticizing the state legislators that were involved in developing those, but we already had them in place. When in Donald Trump's first term, the Department of Justice came out with a mandate that if you're going to get Department of Justice funding for law enforcement, anything related to law enforcement, you had to meet these 2 federal credentialing standards. Well, guess what? All of our accredited agencies already had those in place. Fast forward, the Biden administration upped that to 20 mandated credentialing standards. I think you know what I'm going to say next. Our accredited agencies already could attest that those 20 credentialing standards were in place, that if a police department applied for Department of Justice funding, that they could attest that they meet those. So anyhow, so that keeps them, ahead of the curve a little bit. The other thing too, when you compare accredited police departments to non-accredited police departments, accredited police departments get sued less often than non-accredited police departments. And when accredited police departments get sued and there's a payout, the payouts are significantly less. So by virtue of your chief going through this process and getting the North Borough Police Department accredited, he's doing a big job as far as risk management, because we all know providing law enforcement service is a very high-risk activity that any municipality that has a police department provides. The insurance companies, most of them provide discounts because they recognize an accredited police department is saving them money, because they're not going to be dealing with suits. Workers' comp claims go down with accredited police departments. Police car crashes go down statistically with accredited police departments. And there's a whole litany of things. Anyhow, I will stop talking here in a second. Anybody has any interest, I can talk all night long about accreditation. But anybody here in the audience and any of you elected officials, you can go to the public-facing webpage, pachiefs.org. There's an accreditation tab. There's a lot of information, and those 370 best practices are all listed there, that you can see exactly what your police department is adhering to. One last thing I'd like to say is I've been talking about the program and everything that the police department has to do. Let me tell you what the three assessors had to say about your police department, because I think this is very telling, and especially about the leadership of your chief. This comes right out of the report that they submitted. I cut and pasted it. The Narberth Borough Police Department, upon review of their policies and procedures, is a professional, progressive law enforcement agency committed to providing service to the community through state-of-the-art policing policies and philosophies. The agency provides comprehensive policing services 365 days a year through dedicated service. The Narberth Borough Police Department is a professionally managed law enforcement agency committed to modern and progressive ideals, policies, and technologies. It is evident through their policies and practices that the agency is committed to building a well-rounded agency competently serving their community through professional standards proven by this on-site assessment. The department, Chief John String and his staff, through continual review and evaluation, fulfill the ideals promulgated by the Pennsylvania Chiefs of Police through their accreditation program. Based upon the assessment team's file review, their on-site inspection, all applicable standards established by the Pennsylvania Law Enforcement Accreditation Commission have been met. And it goes on, but I think that sums up what your police department, this is from 3 assessors that came in that had no allegiance to your police chief or your police department, that spent 2 days here, had to say. So without any further ado, I'd like to publicly present Chief John String with the Pennsylvania Law Enforcement Accreditation Commission certificate. Congratulations, Chief.
Dana, do you want to get in there too?
Oh, ruined the picture. Thank you.
That's right.
If you have any questions about accreditation, don't call me, I'm a resident expert.
Congratulations. Thank you. My pleasure.
If I may, for real
Wait,
quick,
just your sheet.
I'd like to say Chief Adams had mentioned 370 different standards that have to be proven twice, and the large majority of them are things that occur on the street. So while I'm very proud to receive this, I'm more proud of the men and women that at 2 o'clock in the morning are doing the right thing, because no matter how much we may do research or pull proofs or provide training, if the men and women that are out there aren't doing the right thing, we don't have the ability to show a proof. So realistically, this is their effort, their hard work, their commitment. That's a reflection of all that through this award. So I'm very proud of them. I'm proud of the department, but I also say thank you to everyone here, because without your support, we would not have been able to achieve it. We had to make some changes, we had to commit to training, there was a lot of things we had to accomplish that all of you were critical in. Last, unfortunately, Sergeant Bernaccio couldn't be here tonight. He is our accreditation manager, so he did a lot of the heavy lifting, went through training, attended the conference to learn how to make sure that all the standards were met and all our training requirements were met. So a special thanks to him for all his hard work, and unfortunately, like I said, he couldn't be here. But thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Adams. And,
You're quite welcome.
Thank you very much.
and congratulations, Chief String.
Thank you.
Congratulations to the department.
Thanks for that adjustment. So I'll be brief, just a couple of comments. Number one, on the positive note, we do have Juneteenth tomorrow, so I'd just like to extend to those people celebrating that, congratulations on that. We do have Pride at the Park on Saturday, right here in Narberth Park. And then for all the dads, Happy Father's Day. That's the following day. So those are some of the first comments. And I think the second comments would be the article that came out in the Inquirer today. I've gotten a lot of feedback on that. I would say the feedback comes in two forms. The first form it comes in is, is there a way to get more sort of feedback into the article? And well, I don't write the articles, I can't do that, but there's definitely interest from the public in giving more feedback. I'm trying to summarize a number of phone calls that came, so just bear with me as I do that. And there were a lot of comments around, I didn't know that that person thought this, or I didn't know that that council person was thinking that. So I think some of the comments might have led people to believe different things about what they've heard from council. And then sort of the overarching topic was, can't they just bring it to a vote? And so I just bring that to you, that today was interesting. So I would thank the Inquirer for filling my voicemail and email box on that. And I think I'll stop comments at that point from there. Thank you.
Yeah, I'll just add that I think it's great that the Inquirer is devoting attention to Narberth in general. I mean, we have a reporter who's covering Narberth's affairs, which is a welcome change from years of the Inquirer having better things to do, I suppose. It's delightful, and especially because now the Mainline Times has ceased discussion. It's important for people to know what council members are doing. It's important to know what's going on in the borough. So I want to applaud the general articles being written, but it's positive.
Great. So wanted to just touch on a couple of notes real fast. So as we had advertised, we are embarking on a concerted effort this year to evaluate and inspect for vegetation that would be blocking sidewalks, overhanging sidewalks, and overhanging the street. So we have been providing information, announcement, and educational resources to residents about this. Our code enforcement team has started going out this month to provide notice to residents who are in violation of any of those provisions. Our initial outreach is through hang tags that we're putting on the door that says specifically what the violation is. Most people are getting between 21 and 30 days to correct the noted violation, and then follow-up inspections will be performed. I just want to make it clear there is no fee or fine or formal citation as part of the hang tag. So if you do get a hang tag, it's just a heads up, here's what we need to have addressed, and then gives you a couple weeks to take care of that. So we'll just be continuing those inspections. We've had a number of folks stop by the office with questions about how they can correct for the violations, so we're happy to provide any information, education, or just clarity about anything that you receive related to those inspections. And then a couple of key things to note for our staffing. We've been heavily short-staffed the last few weeks. Kelsey Fisher left us at the beginning or mid-May. We did hire our new communications and records clerk. Her name is Maria Anderson, so she started this week. So we're really glad to have her on board. But of course, during the month that we were without that position, we also had a number of vacations, and then we just had a lot of right-to-knows. So staff time has been very limited just between trying to manage all of the different demands on our time. So we've been trying to keep up with everything. Hopefully we've been doing a good job there, but we're looking to really get back on track now that we have full staff. And we have an intern for the summer. So if you guys aren't following us on Instagram, please follow us on Instagram. Our intern is doing a takeover this summer, so she'll be coming up with lots of fun engagement opportunities, so hope you follow us on social media. And really that's the main thing. We're going to be moving forward with our road paving program as well, so those folks on those impacted streets are going to be getting some additional information once we have a final schedule from our contractor. And otherwise, we're just kind of looking forward to diving into the capital planning process, which we started having small group discussions with council regarding that. So then we'll be bringing that before the public at our July business meeting. That's all I have.
All right, thank you. All right, next item is public comment. So as a reminder, public comment will be limited to 3 minutes, and we will project. Yeah, in a minute, we will have a timer on the screen so you can observe your time. Yellow is a minute left, is that right?
It's 30 seconds.
Yellow is 30 seconds left, red is you are over your 3 minutes.
It's orange.
Orange. Or green, yellow, and orange.
That's aggressive.
Green, yellow, orange. Yes.
All right, so please begin by giving your name and your address, and then we'll go ahead and begin the time. And I will start with folks in the room as soon as our technical support is in operation.
That's my camera.
Did he ask
Did
for
you
public
join
comment?
us?
Is it possible to get some more chairs for the people who are, I can't.
I don't think we can physically fit more chairs.
Well,
in
we
this
can
room.
move forward.
Yeah, can we move the table back? We can
I don't think that's a good idea because of electronics.
No, front row can move forward. I'll sit in front of you, but that way we can get some more chairs.
I think if we move this back, we might disrupt all the
The wire.
wires.
I had asked that we move it to the larger room, but I didn't go with it.
Yeah, we had some technical issues when we were in the larger room, and the last couple of times it turned out we could have held it in this room. So
Yeah.
it's and I guess I may have guessed wrong.
Yeah.
I apologize. Okay, we're gonna move a few chairs in, and then I will.
Keep rolling forward.
I don't want to be brigade over there. Thank you for stepping out, everybody. All right, this is just going to be another minute to get the remaining 4 or 5 chairs. I guess we'll know in the future if we have to, we can slide people forward. Take care. Make sure that people can exit the room if they need to. Is it clear? Is the door clear? Can people get out if they need to? All right.
Yeah.
Okay. Thanks, everybody. All right, I will begin public comment with people in the first row. So I'll just start in this corner and move across. If you wish to make a public comment, acknowledge. Okay, go ahead. Stand up and give your name and your address.
Yeah, my name is Larry Sykes. I live at 217 Haverford Avenue. Been there since 2019. When I moved here in 2019, I became immediately aware that council was going to approve 2 apartment buildings on either end of my block with limited parking, and I came in, the last time I came in here was to object to that. And this is the second time I've been in. Since that time, I've been very vocal in my objections to these developments, and particularly how they are carried out. My bone is not to pick with the developer. He's going to do what he's going to do. My bone is to pick with you as council because you do not do your job to protect the citizens of Narberth. Both those projects dragged on for 5 years, which is ridiculous. They endangered my family and the families of everybody else that had to use the downtown area. There were slabs of brick, a 6-foot slab of brick, hung off the side of that building for months. I let you all know about it, you did nothing about it. I don't know whether you don't communicate with the developer or what the situation is. The other thing, he reduced the 2 sidewalks on either end of the block to rubble. They were rubble for months. They blocked all the crosswalks, they blocked all the handicapped access ramps on both ends of that block. There was not a safe way for me to walk my kid to the bus stop. The only time that came to an end is when one of our senior citizens ended up face down, unconscious in a pool of blood in front of the cheese shop because there was no safe way for him to get there. The entire block was shut off. It's a dangerous situation. You all did nothing about it. Now you're getting ready to rubber stamp another project at 102 Essex. I anticipate the same things will happen because I don't think you've done anything to improve how you handle these situations. Again, I don't object to the builder, I object to the way you handle it. He's going to do what he's going to do. And apparently you all were afraid to communicate with him. I spent months. His trucks would park wherever they wanted despite your signs saying that they had to park, there was parked wherever they wanted. They blocked the handicap access, did whatever they wanted. I was told, okay, contact the borough and tell them and they'll come up there. Well, they didn't. They were ticketed repeatedly until finally the workers were just ridiculing Paul, the parking controller. They just ridiculed him. They laughed in his face. So finally, the borough stopped responding to me and said, well, you should call 911 if they're blocking a crosswalk, a handicap ramp. I called 911. There's, why isn't the borough doing something about that? Anyone know? I don't know. Then finally, they got sick of me. They said, well, if he's doing something you don't like, go tell his worker to move his truck.
Sir.
Okay, I'm 67 years old. I did it. Could you please move your truck? Handicapped people do not have wait a minute.
Your time has expired and there's a lot of people waiting.
Okay. Handicapped.
Sir.
I went up. You know what I was told by his worker?
Sir, there are a lot
Go
of people
fuck
waiting.
yourself. So I think you all
Sir.
need to take responsibility for what you're doing and put a stop to this. I'm done.
Thank you. I appreciate that people are passionate about the issues, but
Yeah, I'm very passionate
we have
about
to make
the
sure
issue.
that everybody gets a chance to speak, so please, we're going to be...
And you're
enforcing
dismissive of the
3-minute
issue.
limit. It's right there, the 3-minute time, all right?
Good evening. My name's Jack Brinkman. I live at 74 Windale Road. I moved to Narberth in 1976, 50 years ago. My wife Gail and I raised 4 children here. I coached CYO basketball at St. Margaret's for over 20 years, and I sat on the Civil Service Commission of the borough for several years as well. So my ties to Narberth are deep and long-standing. I would like to make a point about fairness and transparency in decision-making, because I believe that is what's missing from the decision about the proposed bump outs. From 1980 to 1983, I worked for the EPA on its hazardous waste task force. During that time, I spent most of my 3 years working on the infamous McAdoo hazardous waste site, which was considered one of the most dangerous hazardous waste sites in the country. Thousands of rusting 55-gallon drums filled with hazardous chemicals sat exposed and at risk of leaking into the Little Schuylkill River. We identified approximately 60 responsible parties and sought to collect several $1 million in cleanup costs. What I learned from that experience was simple. Progress did not begin until we convinced each responsible party that the amount we were asking them to pay represented their fair share of responsibility. Once the people understood the basis for our decision and believed it was equitable, money began coming in. I raised that experience because I believe the same principle applies here. The borough has told residents how many bump outs are planned for their streets, but it's not adequately explained how those numbers were determined or why they're fair and equitable across the community. Without an explanation from the borough, I tried to understand the numbers myself. Windale Road has 32 houses and is scheduled to receive 2 bump outs, which works out to 1 bump out every 16 homes. I then looked at Dudley Avenue. Counting from the 500 block to the 100 block, I found approximately 116 homes. Dudley currently has 1 bump out and is scheduled to receive 3 more for a total of 4. That works out to 1 bump out for every 29 homes. Again, Windale Road, 1 bump out for every 16 homes. I also looked at the 200 block of Forest Avenue. It has approximately 30 homes and only 1 bump out with no additional bump outs planned. That's 1 bump out for every 30 homes. Forest Avenue has nearly the same number of homes as Windale, is wider, and has 2 points of entry, yet Forest Avenue requires only 1 bump out, while Windale requires 2. I'm not claiming the bump out should be allocated solely on the basis of homes. My point is the residents have never been shown the methodology used to determine those numbers. The borough developed a plan, and the borough should be able to explain why the distribution is fair and equitable. Therefore, I respectfully propose that the borough provide residents with a clear explanation of how these decisions were made and demonstrate why the proposed allocations are equitable across Narberth. In the meantime, I have no objection to moving forward with the 1 bump out on Windale Road that residents have already indicated is acceptable. Thank you.
Thanks. I'll just note that we're not going to respond as our business occurs. We may respond at the very end of the public comment period.
My name is Rob Gunther. I live at 104 Windale Road. I see that the item for consideration below is the RFP for bump outs. I assume that would be 2 bump outs, but I would strongly recommend that if the council proceeds with 2 bump outs, that it break that up to have an alternative for 1 bump out now and 1 bump out to be further studied. Thank you.
Hey, my name is Serge from 77 Windale Road. I used to be a council member, so I really want to thank all the council members for doing what you do. It's a thankless and volunteer job, so I want to remind my neighbors that it is a volunteer job. I'm here supporting my neighbors on my street, but also to support the idea of the bump outs. Not because the state of PA is asking us to put them in. I personally don't think we have any business doing anything for the state until they fully fund SEPTA. The bump outs are good for our environment. They slow the runoff, and especially filter microplastics and other toxins that run with the groundwater. I understand that residents like us on Windale don't exactly get to choose where the borough specifically puts these along our street, but I really appreciate Councilmember Thompson's for making the effort to engage our community first. Coming to the street to chat with us was a class act. The borough is welcome to put a bump out in front of our property if we can discuss the conditions, but I hear that it's not the best location because the stormwater inlet is at the upper corner of our curb, past where you want to put the bump outs. But look, I don't love the look of or the inconvenience of the bioswales, but I understand and accept that our commitment to the environment requires sometimes a little bit of sacrifice. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Mira Ghosh. I'm his daughter. I live at 77 Windale. And I understand that a lot of my neighbors feel that a bump out on our street will cost them something. Either it's a parking space, property values, the beauty of our street, or safety of kids. I disagree, but I do respect their concerns. I think it's rare that an opportunity to make a difference falls in our laps. All we have to do to help stormwater management, protect the environment, and help our town satisfy the requirements for the state is just sit back and do nothing and let it happen. As far as I understand it, if we don't have this bump out on our street, it has to go on someone else's street. I think living in Narberth is a privilege, and living on Windale is even greater of a privilege. We have the best street in Narberth, in my opinion. And it makes us part of a community. I don't think our first instinct should be to ask which other street should take this on instead of us. I think we should ask whether what is being asked of us is reasonable, and in this case, I think it is. I'll also say this, my career was studying microplastics for about 4 years. I worked on microplastics in stormwater for about 2 of those years. And what I learned is that slowing down stormwater is a really big deal for microplastics. Once they reach the river or a major drain, they're pretty much unstoppable without impacting the environment in some other way. The water that comes out of our drain is eventually filtered before we drink it again, but that filtering process doesn't remove all the plastics. And I think this project will be effective in at least stopping plastics. I don't know much about other pollutants, but I believe that it will do that. I think we can ask to move the bump out along Windale or modify the way it looks or ask for safety features, but I don't think we should just push this off onto another street. We are being asked to set an example of what a sustainable community could look like for our other Narberth neighbors. For what a sustainable community could look like for other towns. We're being asked to accept an inconvenience for the good of our other Narberth neighbors and for the good of the world. And I think that's something that Windale is really well equipped to do. Thank you.
Thanks. And I'm not sure where that jingling sound is coming from, but if whoever could please refrain from doing that while there's a public comment, that would be helpful. All right. Next, still in the front row?
No, I'm fine.
Okay, and Katie, do you want to make a comment?
Oh, no.
Okay, let's go to the second row then.
I just have a brief comment. My name's Bill Waterman. I live at 15 Chestnut Avenue. I think the concept of bump outs are ridiculous. I see a bunch of weeds and I see a bunch of dirt, and the idea of sediment mitigation is like, so there's dirt coming down my street. I'm not, didn't go to college about microplastics and about all this kind of stuff. I just think it's a little bit of an overreaction to, like, when it rains, the water comes down the street, it ends up in Shortridge, and it kind of settles in, and that's where the sand and the dirt goes. So maybe I'll learn a little bit more, but I think the idea of the bump outs with all of the, they look ugly. It looks like a bunch of weeds growing in this thing that disrupts traffic, especially around intersections. We have cars parked on both sides of the street, and somebody's coming in, somebody's coming out, but there's a bump out there, so it squeezes traffic. It seems to be much ado about nothing, in my opinion.
Hi, I'm Judy Giuliani, 227 Woodbine Avenue. At the last Borough Council meeting, I was unable to get a signal on my phone, and I wanted to present the visual from my neighbor Dave Boyles based on the results of the survey. I was able to send that survey. I'm not singling you three out, but I only have your 3 phone numbers, Michael, Cindy, and Jim. I sent you that visual assessment and requested that you give it to Borough Council and the other members on the council. Did that get done? Does anyone know?
No, I did not send it out, Judy. I'm sorry.
But I received that.
Yep. I think Mr. Boyles has sent us.
Somebody sent it to us,
Yeah.
I got it.
And I had requested also that it be given to the Borough Council and the Montgomery County, I'm sorry, not Borough Council, Borough Planning Commission and the County Planning Commission. And I didn't know whether it got done, so I just wanted to reiterate that. And Dave will be back next week if anyone needs a copy, okay?
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Emily Hollis. I live at 72 Windale. I've lived there for 24 years. And I would just like to say thank you for letting us speak. I'm not opposed to the bump outs. The expert on our block and others, you know, I believe in their value in filtering sediment. My only concern is that the placement of them seems to be really arbitrary at the moment. We hear about engineers who wanted one place on the block and then it got moved to another, and then the fire marshal said no, and then it got moved somewhere else. And the fact that it keeps getting bumped around has me wondering if the council is really concerned about the most effective locations where they can be best for the environment, rather than just checking a box and sticking them wherever there's a room. It feels like they're kind of ping-ponging around, and I would prefer to have some assurance that there's actually a reason behind each placement, rather than just some sort of performative environmentalism, or again, just sort of checking a box. Councilman Bush, at the beginning of your remarks, you mentioned that when the borough decided in favor of the bump outs because you could place them wherever there was an issue, that's my concern, is I want to know that they are being placed where there is an issue. So that's all I'd like to say. Thank you.
My name's Duncan Hollis. I also live at 72 Windale Road. We've been there since 2004. I want to double down on my wife's point about the effectiveness question. I do feel like there's been a lot of movement on Windale, and it really feels like there have to be two, and they have to be two because we need to fulfill a bureaucratic compliance issue, not because we're actually looking at the two that will do the most for the pollution remediation in Narberth. I also want to echo my neighbor Jack Brinkman's point about the notice and transparency of this issue. I'm still a little bit surprised at how I only learned about from Jack that there would be this bump out adjacent to my property, that no one from the borough office is making actually any notifications to the people that will be affected. I'm particularly kind of dismayed in the novelty of the second bump out that's I think a lot of people are objecting to. If you go look at the existing bump outs, I haven't seen them all, but I've looked at 5 of them. They're all either in front of like a church, or they're in front of not the front of the house, but the side of the house, or they're in front of large shrubbery and the like. And I think for the particular folks who are looking at this right now, this is going to be their front yard. This is going to be what they're looking at. And maybe when you originally designed them, that would be fine. But now they're yellow, and they have weird white sticky things sticking up. And so I think you have to really think about the fact that I understand that this is the borough's property, but you're going to actually affect the appraisal of the neighbor's property. Like by putting it in front of that person's house, it may help other people's property values, but you are decreasing the property value of one of my neighbors, and I'm not sure that's fair, particularly given how the notice is played out in this particular case. And the last question I have is a question, which is I hear all this about the pollutant and the need to reduce it and keep it out of the wastewater, but if we're actually talking about putting it in people's front yard who have 3 young children, what happens when the children play in the space that is gathering the pollutants that we're saying can't make it to our water? Has anyone looked at the health and safety of what happens? And again, I understand maybe we're supposed to police our children from not playing in it, but this will be the first one that literally is like the front yard of a house. And so I would urge the Borough Council to be considerate of the fact that having moved it now 3 times, thinking about where you're doing it right now. And I hope that you'll be at least willing to consider maybe only approving 1, not 2 at the present point in time. Thank you.
My name is Mike Brinkman. I live at 85 Windsor. I grew up on Windale though. I understand the bump outs and not opposed to 1. I just think it's not equitable for there to be 2 on 1 street. The other thing is I read the engineering report as early as this morning, and it says Windale's 50 feet wide. It's actually 24 feet wide. Just confusing to me that an engineer would be off by 26 feet. And then to add on to that, you're then gonna have to put no parking signs across the street because it's not 50 feet wide. Thank you.
Yeah, I can answer that because I raised that issue. Somebody else had raised that question of 50 feet, and I asked the engineer. It's actually, they recognize the street is not 50 feet wide. Technically, the right-of-way is 50 feet wide. That very concern was why I had the fire marshal go out to measure to make sure that it was wide enough.
He's the one that told me it was 24.
Right. No, and he did the actual measurement. I asked the engineers why it was 50 feet, why it said 50 feet, and they explained that's actually the right of way.
So if someone parks across the street?
The street is 24 feet wide. He has assured me that the fire marshal has confirmed that if somebody is parked across from the proposed bump out, because they are actually slightly narrower than some of the other bump outs that have been approved or built, that the fire engines can get through. So the fire marshal.
He said it differently to me. But.
All right, well, and we'll address this during the discussion of the bump outs itself, and then our engineers will be available to answer some of your questions. So to keep moving on to public comment. Okay, sir.
My name is Vince Quinn. I live at 68 Windale. I've been there for almost 40 years. Not to toot my flute, but the Montgomery County Court System has deemed me an expert in real estate valuation. I spent my career doing things very similar to this. In addressing the situation up front, I didn't hear anything about the impact on the street and or its residents. And I think that's what we're dealing with here is the street and the residents. There is no question in my professional mind that these bump outs are a detriment to Windale Road and will negatively impact on the value of the street as a whole. Especially the houses that are definitely impacted, one in front, one across the street, and there's four, because there's two bump outs, there's four of these houses. Those houses, when they were purchased, were not purchased with these bump outs in front of them. These are diminutive in value. Those properties are going to go down in value. There's no question in my mind about that. Quantifying, it's a different animal, but they are going to go down in value. Jumping ahead to the engineering study, which I believe was prepared by Yerkes, so I'm not 100% sure about that. I have the chart that was in the March of 26 Borough meeting here that details the drainage areas of Windale Road at 53,000 square feet. I believe that that is measured on the 50 feet, what you call the right-of-way. The right-of-way was actually 24 feet. I believe the 50 feet is taken from the tax records by the county, which probably incorporates the sidewalks and the grass areas on both sides that will not drain into the street. Okay. In effect, the 53,000 is really 31,000 square feet that are going to be impacted. Okay. I measured this with a tape measure. All right. I mean, that's what I do in my business to make sure when the judge asks me, yes, I measured. The second part of this is, I think on Windale Road, if I'm not mistaken, there's about 1,200 units of gunk that are going to be removed by the two bump outs. And I believe number 14 on the list here, Northern Avenue at Windsor, approximately the same size, 52,000. Has approximately the same amount of gunk units at 1,261. Okay, first of all, the drainage area is not 53,000 feet, it's 31,000 feet. Okay, now I'm wondering also if Yerkes considered that Windale Road, as discussed, is a low volume street. It is not going to accumulate the same amount of gunk as number 14, Narberth Avenue in Windsor. So maybe we'll get half the amount of that. I think the overall reduction in the amount of square footage that's impacted, 31,000 as opposed to 53,000, and that Windale Road is going to generate a lot less gunk than the remainder of the streets in the borough.
Sir, your time has expired.
Okay.
Thank you.
I wrote something down this time. My name's Evan McCaskey. I live at 71 Windale, and I've lived in Narberth for 13 years. This is now my third trip to the Borough Council in the past few weeks since first finding out about the project. The proposed bump out in front of our house via published plans the night before the last infrastructure meeting. I spent countless nights awake over the last weeks worrying, and I've learned quite a lot from my research during that time. I've learned that 8 of the 8 existing bump outs in Narberth, unlike the one proposed in front of our home, 0 of them are directly in front of a house, taking up the entire front facade and eliminating all street parking for that resident. I've learned that there are 5 driveways within 16 feet of the proposed location for the bump out near our home, impacting not only street parking, but also access to our driveway and others, as well as the safety of our children playing in the street. I've also learned that the borough's published pollutant reduction plan, as Councilman Bush said, identified 8 options in addition to bump outs as a potential solution. I've learned from local Narberth businesses that there exist more modern options and private property solutions. I've learned that at the January 27th and February 5th meetings, it was decided this year's bump outs would go on the south side, and at the February 24th meeting, they were all intended to go on the north side with 2 additional locations besides Windale. Windale originally had 1 bump out proposed, but then it became 2. By the March 19th meeting, and it was only the 2 targeted for Windale and no others throughout the borough. Clearly, the plans can be adjusted, and so we're asking for that consideration here. I've learned that the Elmwood Ave project will strongly address remediation and potentially eliminate some of the need for future bump outs. Is there a case to be made to the state that we're making progress against these requirements with a large project on the books for next year? Thus, we can pause bump outs for this year. I've learned that there's money in the budget for these stormwater bump outs. Even if there's an argument for grants, there are other cul-de-sac roads in Narberth. We supposedly really need 2 on Windale. Isn't 1 that is 50 feet long enough? It feels like our block is shouldering more than our fair share. I've learned that there are 9 locations identified by the engineer that have higher credits than the one originally targeted for Wynndale. I've learned that low-volume roads have less sediment to remove. I've learned, as Mayor Edwards pointed out at the last meeting, the majority of Wynndale doesn't have curbs, which should impact the sediment capture calculation assumptions. I believe it's called paved open ditches. I've learned that the large majority of the community of Narberth opposes these, but there are also people that would gladly have them in front of their property. So let's poll the community for volunteers. Not all locations may work for various reasons, but I bet we'd find some that would be much less disruptive than the current plan. I've also learned about the overwhelming support of neighbors on the block and in the broader community. And finally, I've learned from going back and watching some of the older council and committee meetings, as well as visits from a few select council members, that for the most part, this council really seems to care about the community, its neighbors, and wants to do the right thing. I'm asking you to please consider alternative options to the proposed bump outs on Wynndale Road, and specifically the one taking up the entire street-facing facade of our house where our children play every day. This has been a really disheartening experience over the past few weeks, and I'm hoping for a more heartening outcome from today's meeting. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Peter Schmitz. I live at 105 Wynndale Road. I'd just like to speak in support of those of my neighbors who have asked for a better communication process, but it does feel like this has been handed to us in a very quick manner. I'm glad that there's so many people here to respond. I want to speak just quickly about the one part of the project that hasn't been mentioned, not the bump outs, but the fact that the corner of Shady Lane and Wynndale is also bundled in with this project. Right now, it's only contemplating one corner. I understand it's a matter of cost. It costs twice as much to do 2 corners. It is a little, again, I feel like along with other people there, I feel like I haven't been communicated. Nobody came to me and said, what is the reason for this? Why is this corner all broken up, and why is your corner fine? And my response is, it's because I defend that corner. I put posts there, I put cement dogs there, I plant flowers there, I yell at the garbage man when he drives over my curb and breaks up the cement. So I won't always be there, I won't always live at 105, and it doesn't seem like good planning not to do either side. I realize that maybe the trucks will have a bigger way to turn around. My good neighbor Jim Cornwell tells me that reducing the radius of a corner actually increases the speed of traffic going around it, so maybe that's not a good thing. All I'm saying is that I'm highly inclined to, once this improvement has happened, to stop defending my corner and let trucks run over my corner, and then I can say, see, this happens here too, because I'm not doing anything about it. And then maybe that corner will be paid attention to too. Thank you.
Jim Baylor, 108 Wynndale. I'm not opposed to the idea of the bump outs. I think we would all say we would like clean water going into our water streams and rivers. But I'm here to support Evan, and you pretty much said everything I wanted to say, as in, I don't think there's any that take up the entire frontage of someone's home. And my understanding is both of his neighbors were asked if they would take it, and they both said no. So I have to ask, why can't he say no? Why can't he say no? It just doesn't, something seems wrong there, and it moved around, so some people were not happy with it, and he stuck with it. And I have 3 young kids too, and I don't know that I want it right in front of my house, the whole thing and a driveway, and that's it. That's all you got left. And I just think there's something wrong with that. So I would encourage somehow, and that would be for any neighbor, not just Wynndale Road in Narberth, to not have a choice in that.
Everybody here knows who I am at this point. I'm Sam McCloy. I live at 100 Wynndale Road. This may sound surprising, but I'm not here to rant about the process. I'm not here to rant about the measurements of Wynndale. And I do recognize that this committee has a very difficult job and has to make some very big, very complicated decisions. I'm not an engineer, so I'm not here to argue about sediment capture. I'm not here to argue about what works where and where this should be, tonight at least. What I'm here to mention though is I am familiar with big complicated decisions in my work, and what I've seen is that there's 2 kinds of decisions. There's one-way door decisions and there's 2-way door decisions. We're not talking about an ordinance. We're not talking about a no parking zone. We are talking about a $29,000 piece of infrastructure that once it goes in, make no mistake, it's never coming out, ever, because it would cost just as much to get rid of it. And when you have a one-way door decision like that you cannot undo, there's usually a process around it that involves stakeholders. There's usually a process around it that compares that decision to other alternatives. What happens if we do nothing? There's usually a null set alternative. None of that is in any of the materials that we've seen since March that, frankly, guys, we found out about on our own. And that is my big concern here, is about the decision process and about how this is being decided. But again, I promised I wouldn't rant tonight. I do want to thank you guys. I do know this is complicated, and there's a lot that goes into this. Just please talk to stakeholders and compare options, and don't be so opaque about it. We'd all be in a better place if we can do that, and that's all I've got to say today. Thank you.
Yeah, my name is Adam Clemens from 75 Windale Road. I'm here to support my neighbors, to voice my opposition to the second bump out. I'm not going to waste time because all my reasons have been very elegantly put before. I want to avoid the orange screen of doom. So. But I will say it just makes sense to me that there's one property who welcomes the bump out. You're getting a lot of opposition here. It makes sense to me to compromise and just have the one bump out there and move on. Again, I'm not an engineer. I don't know all the backroom things that have to happen with this, but to me, that makes the most sense. Just have the one bump out and move on. Thank you very much.
I'm Alexandra Ting, and I'm at 117 Woodside Avenue. Excuse me. So I'm not interested in complaining about one bump out, but I'm going to say something about every bump out. I think it's a detriment on any street. It's a hole in the street, and it could create an accident. I mean, if it were covered with snow, maybe a car would try to park there and never get out. I think there are a lot of unforeseen things that could happen. It also narrows the streets permanently, right? For, you know, all effectively, especially if you put it at the end of the block, because cars get stuck trying to turn. I would encourage you to keep exploring other alternatives. And ask residents for other ideas. Continue to do that, because I was never consulted, and I didn't even know about this discussion. So my thought was also that all new construction now, requires 0.7 parking. Maybe not all new construction, but there are certain new construction that it requires 0.7 parking spaces per housing unit. How can we do that and still take away parking spaces all over the borough? Can't have it all, you know? My idea was that in our open areas, in our parks that we have Elm Grove Park near us, and I'm wondering why the whole park is PennDOT's responsibility. If the borough owns a good part of that park, including, I think, the stream bed, or at least one side of it. And so that length of the stream bed from the end of the Amtrak property, or I don't know what it is, to the point where PennDOT owns it, is right at a strip along the edge. Why not naturalize the stream bed, the stream banks, and create the natural, like a bioswale, a natural place where the water gets absorbed and plantings along, for a good section of that, so that it gets absorbed into it doesn't run into the stream. I think that's a great solution, and it's also an advantage to the park. I'm wondering why grass was planted right down to the edge of the stream, and there's a stone wall there, and it's mowed. And I don't know if it's fertilized. I'm wondering all these things as I walk by every day. And, know, I think there are other solutions that are a lot more natural for that space, and you could have done them in the beginning. So, okay, so that is my comment. And I'd like to explore also Narborough Park. There is a section where there's a wall. We could maybe naturalize that part.
Thank you. Anybody else in that row? All right, going to the back row. I'll just start over there.
No. So,
Go ahead.
hi, I'm Karen. I live at 95 Wendell Road. This is my husband, Andrew. Andrew actually grew up in Narborough, around the corner on Dudley, so long-term neighbor.
Since 89.
Yeah. I did want to clear up one misperception before I can read what I have to say. There's been a lot of talk about the bump out that's been approved. We actually live on 95 Wendell Road, which is directly across from that. We do not approve of it. We object to it. And we are saying that on the record, so I don't know where this idea came in that like everyone's hunky-dory about that, because that directly impacts us, our property value, and we have concerns about that. We do certainly appreciate that this needs to happen in terms of stormwater management, but we really agree with a lot of the comments that have been made here tonight about looking at alternatives. I did want to say that we did also measure the streets, and we also got like 24 feet on our street. And so we do think that is like a legitimate concern. We have a child. He does play all around there. He has lots of friends who are there playing. And we do think that if there's a bump out there, it's going to, we see kids on bike scooters. Yesterday there was a running club running through Wendell. People are gathering, and reducing that space is going to impact the safety. It's not a question, it's a fact. So you have to ask yourselves as a council, do you want to impact our property values? Do you want to impact our safety of our children and families? Do you want to impact the character of the neighborhood that is also a marketing, piece? You're talking about the Philadelphia Inquirer. Okay, well, what happens when these, again, continue to pop up all over Narborough? This says to other potential interested residents, is the council really looking out for our best interests, or are they just trying to check a box, as someone said? We want to hope that you are thinking about, the investment that we've made in this community, the families that are here, and really make a decision that is safe and well-intended, for the whole community. So that is
Kevin Rogan, I live on Dudley Avenue. One thing that concerns me is that the borough spends a lot of time on a project, and I think you need to make it clear to folks here how much time you spent on this pump out project, how long it's been percolating, so to speak, when these other spots first got put in. And it didn't seem to become a big cause célèbre until there's going to be two on Wendell, which is the least trafficked street in all of Narberth. I know Jack Brinkman pointed out that there's more houses if you go down Dudley and you go down Essex. There's many more people, many more cars parked there. So a bump out is going to be more impactful on those streets in terms of the populace. I don't know what it does in terms of how much sediment it stops or whatever, but we can move on to zoning. And is it going to become a situation where the zoning decision is going to depend on all the folks on Woodbine and Dudley and Essex that are impacted by the zoning? Are they the only ones that should be speaking and you should pay attention to? I think if the engineers have gone through things, and you've certainly spent a lot of time on this, and they've decided where the best places to put the bump outs are, I don't think it's a good idea to just go around the neighborhood and find out who wants one, who doesn't, and that really pits neighbor against neighbor, street against street. I don't think that's the best way to make decisions for the council, and I think it's going to come into play with the zoning decisions. Do you just listen to the people that are immediately around it, or does somebody up on Wendell who's not directly impacted by changes in 5B zoning or 4A zoning, do they come in and do they have something to say? Well, they should, because they're part of this community, so they certainly should. But I think the council itself has to be a bit careful if they spend time. If you've done your job, and I'll assume that you've done a lot of work, and you've made choices as to what needs to be done and how it's to be done. Now to go back and reinvent the wheel, I think is a bit of a problem for council and a bit of a problem for future decisions. That's all I have to say.
John Monroe, Borough Place. I'm actually here to comment on the other, not the bump outs, but the other contentious issue that everybody's supposed to be hunky-dory about, but isn't, the new zoning amendments. I went through the packet that was released a few weeks ago to see how that conversation had progressed. And I have to say that it was pretty striking, mostly because I noticed that a lot of the public feedback, as far as public feedback being taken into consideration is concerned, I did notice that in regards to parking and one specific plank with regards to changing the parking requirements, at least according to the latest version of this packet, seems to have been taken into consideration. I see council is recommending the Planning Commission rework it so that we still have one space per unit, which I appreciate the olive branch to the community. However, one of the things that's, the other thing that struck me was that it seems that every other radical change that was stirring people's emotions seems to have been doubled down on. In fact, I think most of the conversation prior regarding the zoning changes focused on the 5B district because it was presented as the least disruptive place to make these changes. However, a lot of the attention in the packet is given to the 4A district, and a lot of the proposals for the Montgomery Avenue corridor are being moved over to that district. And if people aren't familiar, the 4A district is the area, there's a tiny bit of it on the south side by the train station, and most of it is on the north surrounding downtown. Now, one of the things that struck me in these changes is the swap between usage permissions from conditional to by right. And if people don't know what that means, if something is a conditional use, you have to get approval to build it on a lot you own. If it's by right, you have the right to build it if you own the lot. They're swapping single-family dwellings and multifamily dwellings. Multifamily dwellings were previously by conditional, single-family is by right. If this passes as it stands today, it will be by right to build an apartment building and conditional for single-family homes, which means that if you come into possession of a property in the 4A district and you intend to build a singular home for you and your family, you will have to go through an approval process, part of which will mean going in front of the zoning hearing board, which has been very proud about how unopen they are to civilians' concerns. So I just wanted to bring everybody's attention to some of those drastic changes. As far as the bump outs, there's a list of alternatives that haven't been explored online at ournarberth.com. Thank you.
Anybody else in the room wish to make a public comment?
I actually...
Okay. Go ahead.
My name's Katie Skeen. I live at 227 Hampton. And I didn't know there would be such a Windale turnout. Neighbor to neighbor, I have a bump out on my block. I think it's great. It blooms in the summer. It's got perennials in it. And it works as traffic calming. So I jog up on Windale 3 times a week. So I know that there isn't a lot of cars parked on the street. I know that kids are on scooters and bikes and everything. And I think it'd be great to have a traffic calming measure there if you can figure out where to place it. I guess I just kind of also want to say, again, that I'm in favor of the very kind of modest zoning amendments that are being proposed. I want to reiterate that I don't think reactionary community feedback is the helpful way to make that policy decision. I think it should be
Don't respond to other residents. Talk to us, please.
Yeah, I mean, about that, I just want to say, the vitriol directed at me. Larry Sykes, very nice to meet you. I've had to block you on Facebook because of vitriol you directed at me This young man here.
Katie, I realize, but please talk to us.
Okay,
The
sorry,
public
but
comment
I
is
think,
toward
I
council.
think that you all could do more to call out some of the behavior and maybe say at the beginning of each meeting that people are not to be jeered, or, you know, he said F you to me.
I did
At
not.
the last public meeting.
That's a lie.
Please, okay, folks.
She's talking about me specifically. That is a lie.
And,
She's speaking right now, okay?
Yeah,
And I've
okay.
asked her to address us and not to address you, so.
He
proceed
did,
along
but
standards of public
he
comment.
thinks that he kind of whispered it to me, so he thinks that, like, that doesn't count. And then he said something else to me, and like his back row, maybe his parents were there, kind of like encouraged him.
You can talk to us afterwards.
I just want to say, like,
But
I
I'm
was in
sure
my
you'll scurry
feelings.
away again.
Excuse me, okay? I'm gonna ask everybody to maintain decorum and to
Exactly.
refrain from commenting about the current speaker, all right? Let them speak.
Yeah, my son is like around your age, and like I was kind of.
However, Katie,
in
you
my
also have to
feelings
stop
when you said
addressing
that.
them.
Okay.
Address us.
All right. Well, my son would never say "f you" to your mom, and I would love an apology at some point.
My mother wouldn't treat people
All right,
like you do.
I think we're.
What does that even mean?
Nobody's opinions
Okay,
matter.
please.
The community doesn't matter. That's all you
Excuse
say.
me, all right? You're not in
When
order,
you get
John.
here, you want these reactions
Katie.
because all you say would conjure that.
John, you are not in order, please. Katie, if you have anything you want to say to council, please go ahead, okay? Otherwise, I appreciate that this is, what's that? Well, there's been some interruptions here. If you'd like to say anything else about council, about the issues, go ahead. And otherwise, I'd be happy to speak to you after the meeting about your concerns.
Yeah, so I'll just say that it's disappointing to me that this seems to bring out the worst in our neighbors.
Thank you. And, okay, I think that's it for folks in the room. Oh, sir, you wish to make a public comment? Go ahead.
I appreciate.
I'm sorry, your name and your address?
My name is Vic Francis. I live on Windale Road.
Okay.
I appreciate you allowing me to speak up, allowing me to speak here. I think it's all understandable that we want Narberth to be prosperous and businesses to come in, and more new businesses that come in, and new younger generations. Am I not wrong?
So, sorry, please, again, direct your comments to us. Don't direct them to the rest of the folks.
I understand. But I think I would actually like to propose that before we build more apartments and some other projects that can help the rain mitigate for control. We also have to consider some other things. For example, what about the congestion? We need to think about the issues with traffic, and we also need to worry about the sidewalks being less walkable, or the streets less crossable. And what my concern is, my concern is it's going to affect it's going to cause more car accidents. And I do not want to see another tragedy that's going to happen. So I think I would also like to propose that we should do more to fix more of the aging pipe systems. And I would also consider. I would also like to find other ways to actually invite more businesses over for the younger generations. And I would also like to see more safety with the traffic lights, so there'll be more safer pedestrians. And I think we need to look back. We need to really go back to the drawing board and rethink this before something happens. I appreciate it. Thank you.
We'll move now to folks online. If you wish to make a public comment, raise your hand and I will call on you. You can unmute. David, let's start with you.
Sure. Hi, David Bordeaux, 104 Chestnut Avenue. President Council Bush, this question is really directed to you regarding when I still look online, I still see no indication of the Borough Council caucus meeting from April 28th, 2016. There's no indication that that meeting took place in Narberth. It was one of the most well-attended meetings in borough history. The meeting documents are not on the website. I've emailed council about this in the past, including the borough manager. And I respectfully request that you acknowledge that that meeting actually took place on the borough website. I don't know what the rules are in regard to what you can and can't post on a website, but when I look right now actually on the borough website, I see an April 6, 2016 meeting, an April 11, 2016 meeting, but there's no indication that an April 28th, 2016 caucus meeting took place.
Is your comment finished, David?
Yeah, I'm just wondering why it's not there.
So I know that this has been brought up before. Do you want to address this, either Maggie or John? So we have, I'll ask our solicitor to.
Yeah, I mean, there isn't any reason why it can't be acknowledged that the meeting existed. I think what he's looking for is a court transcript from a hearing to be published related to the hearing that happened on that day. And the hearing transcripts are property of the court reporters. They are able to be provided under the right to know law. They're able to be provided by the court reporter, but that's their property. So it's sort of two different things I think we're talking about here. We should not publish that transcript, but if there needs to be an acknowledgement or ability to find that could be on the website.
Yeah, so the problem is that the only document that we have from that meeting is this court transcript, which we cannot publicly post, according to our solicitor. So I think we can acknowledge that the meeting existed, but we still won't be able to provide the documentation according to the opinion of our solicitor.
And Mr. Bordeaux has that.
Yeah, and you have that transcript.
Oh no, I received
it. Can also request it.
Yeah, I received it when the borough manager told me I wasn't allowed to have it under a right to know request, but we paid for that. We paid for that transcript.
And that is the law. I did have to look into that issue, and that is something I looked into and realized the right to know law specifically addresses that issue. And when it says it can be turned over after any potential appeals of that hearing will be gone, we turned it over. So that was my initial fault.
Right. Well, that's I think where my confusion lied. Not to belabor the point, but my confusion was that it was actually posted on the borough website for almost a decade. And our solicitor was the solicitor at the time that was posted on our website.
Yeah, I think what happened was it came down because of website work. And then I was asked whether it should go back up. And then I initially thought it should not go back up. And then I looked into it. And I still don't believe it should go back up. But I do believe that it can be provided upon request under the right to know.
So, all right, I feel this has been adequately addressed by our solicitor. We can acknowledge that the meeting happened on the website without actually posting the document. And we will proceed so that residents are clear that a meeting actually happened.
Right. Well, I think that you should acknowledge what happened during that meeting, because there are other meetings that take place where materials aren't provided as well.
All right, David, your time has expired. If you know of other meetings where we don't have information, let us know.
Sure, the April 20, was it 2025 Planning Commission meeting when this conversation started with some of the zoning? Those materials weren't posted either.
We can't do it right now.
Okay.
So, all right, thank you. Next, who else? All right, Carol Marie, go ahead. I see your hand.
Carol Marie Scanlon. So wasn't that meeting that Mr. Bordeaux was talking about, the one about the form-based zoning? And that's kind of really important because that's what is causing all this discussion and blooming out of the zoning. But anyway, that was my question on that one. But I wanted to say, so remember at that May 7th, 2026 meeting when there was this discussion about the RFP for Sabine development, and Cindy had brought this up and while discussing the development for Montgomery Avenue and the zoning changes. So my right to know said that there is no RFP, but I find that so hard to believe because if there is no RFP in the works or out in the developer's radar, there are proposals on record from the 12/4/25 meeting showing very detailed development plans for 201. So again, my question still stands. How did developers come up with these plans about this specific property? And my other right to know for conversation and emails with council and the property managers in the office about development plans for 201 haven't been answered, so I'm waiting on that one. And then, according to the CIP, there are no development or no improvements for Sabine Park till 2030. And my question is, why is that? If there are no development plans for Sabine Park, the park should have improvement plan. 4 more years on a neglected park is a really long time, and I don't think we should be waiting that long. I think that park should be worked on to make it safer for the kids and better looking, better fencing. There's so much that can go on at that park because it is a very busy park. And then while we're talking about along the lines of Sabine Park, and if there's no RFP for that, Sabine Park needs an open space easement. So other Narberth residents don't have to fight council for what is ours. This, as I've told you before, is the 3rd time in Narberth history that residents have banded together and fought to save Sabine. So if there is no RFP process for Sabine, when can we expect negotiations and open space easement? We've been asking for this. And also we should have an open space protective easement on Narberth Park and even Elm Park, because protecting our open land should be a high priority for this council. Open land is so precious. We need to protect it. Then I have another quick question about the bump outs. So I'm looking at the bump out, and the way it looked, it was only supposed to be 1 bump out on Windale. It's like number 1. But I noticed that there's a bump out that's on the chart for Foxhall Lane. And that one was recommended by the DWP. So when is that one going to be going in?
All right, thank you, Carol Marie. We'll move on. Anybody else? I saw one more hand up online, so I can see the screen.
Amaya.
Okay, Amaya?
Sorry. Okay, hi, my name is Amaya McCaskey. Hold on 1 second. I think I have the other one on. Okay, my husband and I are the owners of 71 Windale. I was planning on being there, but I'm home with my daughter who's sick. I'm obviously asking you to please adjust the plan for putting 2 bump outs on Windale, specifically the one that's right in front of my house where I park my car every day. This will cause a disruption in our life. I'm concerned about my kids falling into it, especially my daughter who was developmentally delayed and is super clumsy. Honestly, I'm also worried about them popping a tire on it as they're learning to drive. We're asking you to move the bump out because it's been moved so many times. So by moving it so many times, your plans have shown that it doesn't actually have to go in front of our house. So I ask that we all kindly acknowledge that and that we work together to figure it out. I am a Philadelphia public school teacher. I'm fiercely liberal. I care deeply about the environment. I hate microplastics. I believe in community. And I know that everyone approaches issues from different angles based on knowledge and their own emotions. I believe that everyone's trying to do the best that they can to find solutions. I know the incredible value of hearing and respecting community members, as well as feeling heard and respected by others. This is Narberth. We're a community built on being neighborly and having heart. Neighbors help neighbors. Neighbors communicate with neighbors. Neighbors listen to neighbors. And neighbors trust their neighbors. This is Narberth. We are a diversely smart community. We have neighbors who are civil engineers and architects, environmental lawyers. We have neighbors who own landscape businesses with creative green solutions. We have neighbors who are professors, plumbers, realtors, librarians, medical professionals, and contractors. We're a community capable of making both environmentally smart and humanly smart decisions. I believe that we can all hear and respect our neighbors, and I believe we can be flexible thinkers and explore other options, because this is Narberth. Narberth is smart and Narberth has heart. I want to thank you for using your free time in general to make Narberth a better place. It seems like it's a really hard job and I don't want it, so thank you for doing everything that you do. And most of all, I also want to thank you for hearing our concerns and trusting our concerns and respecting our concerns regarding the current bump out plan. Thank you.
I don't see any other hands up online. So if anybody else wishes to make a comment online, please unmute yourself, make it apparent. Okay. All right, I'm going to close public comment then. Thank you, everyone. Take a breath. Next item is the consent agenda.
Move to approve the consent agenda, items A, B, and C. Second.
Any discussion of the consent agenda? All right, let's vote on consent agenda items A, B, and C. All right, unanimous. And congratulations to our new communications and records clerk, Lee Anderson. All right, first consideration item is the stormwater bump outs. Can I get a motion? As the infrastructure chair, you want to?
Okay, sure. I'll move to authorize the bid advertisement for stormwater bump outs and intersection.
Okay.
Second.
All right. So we do have our engineer, Tony here from Pinoni. Sorry, how do you pronounce your last name?
Catalozzi.
Catalozzi, okay, thank you. All right. Actually, let me start with the chief. So we've had some concerns about the safety issues related to the bump outs. Are you aware, so we've had bump outs in place for several years now. Are you aware of accidents or like incidents where people have fallen into them, any kind of public safety issues relating to the bump outs?
No, this came up in public health and safety. We have not had any reports. There was concern of potential, which is why, some of them are painted yellow now, and we have the reflector stripes, but that was done out of an abundance of concern, not in response to any sort of incident.
How about like cars clipping them or anything?
Not that been reported, no.
Nothing's been reported, and people are supposed to report accidents.
I mean, if somebody clips a tire on it on the side, it wouldn't require a state traffic report, but...
But to your knowledge, that the existing bump outs haven't caused any safety incidents?
No.
Okay. And I can say that bump outs are a general solution that's in place, around the country. It's not just us that are building these. So, I mean, I understand why you're concerned about safety, but I think the data that's there suggests that these are a relatively safe intervention.
It's apples and oranges. We're talking about the width.
Excuse me.
But
Okay,
you're talking about apples and oranges.
Excuse me, ma'am. This is. You've had public comment, and
then
it is
please
our
acknowledge
opportunity
that
to speak.
because you're making it sound like it's all the same.
Excuse me, ma'am. It is council's discussion at this point. So we can discuss the width in a minute. So in terms of safety issues, we're not aware of any. And we have had these in place here in Auburn, so we have had opportunity for people to encounter problems if there are some. All right, so the width issues. So the bump outs that are proposed for Windale are narrower than a car. That's right?
Yeah.
And there's...
I was going to say, yeah, we put them at 6 feet wide on Windale. Previously, we've had them at 8 feet wide, which is the standard for a parking space on street parking.
And there's currently parking lot on both sides of Windale.
Yes.
Right. So if there were 2 cars parked alongside either side of Windale, that would be narrower than if there were a bump out in a car. So the current situation, I think, in my opinion, in the opinion of council, is that the current situation is not different than if there were going to be 2 cars parked on Windale, which is permitted anyway. So I think that concerns about width are, in that regard, since we're allowing parking on both sides of the road already, I mean, it feels like we're allowing the road to be fairly narrow, given the current setup.
Yeah, along those lines, I think it's just important to call out that some of the original bump outs, the bump outs that were put in previously are 8 feet in width, not 6 feet. So I I think it may be confusing to people. Like if you're driving up Conway near Stewart, you'll see that the bump out sticks further into the road than the cars do. But that's because I believe it's an 8-foot width. But now we're talking about 6-foot widths. I just wanted to call that out to clarify for everybody that you will see when you drive by some of the current bump outs that they're wider than a car, but the new ones will not be wider than a car. Thanks.
So how are the calculations made, Tony, to determine the locations, the potential locations for the bump outs? How do you go about doing that?
So the calculations are largely dependent on the drainage area associated with where the bump out would be placed. And the drainage area includes not just the street, but it includes the land, outside of the road. So all that water, all that runoff that comes from the road and adjacent to the road, it all gets put into that overall drainage area. Once we determine what that drainage area is, DEP has calculations for us that they provide us to take that drainage area and convert that to a sediment or credit, a credit for pounds per year of sediment reduced. So we take that drainage area, we run the calculations, and we determine, what that sediment reduction would be.
And then the state comes in and it validates your calculations
Yes.
afterwards.
Yeah, every year we submit our annual MS4 report where we report which projects we've performed during that year. We show them our calculations, we show them everything related to the bump outs, and they'll either approve or they'll reject our calculations, and sometimes there's some back and forth in terms of how many credits they give us.
And so it looked like the credits for the bump outs that were originally proposed for Windale are comparable to the bump outs that we've already installed elsewhere in the borough.
Yeah.
Broadly comparable. Okay. Anybody want to ask more questions about, from the resident concerns?
Yeah.
Go ahead, John.
Several people have raised a question about roads that have high traffic versus low traffic and how that might affect the particulate matter. Is that something, I have no idea what the answer to that question is. How does the amount of traffic on a road affect how much particulate matter might be on the road to be collected?
It could certainly play a role. I'm not gonna say that it doesn't. However, DEP doesn't create that variable in their calculations. So regardless of how much traffic and how much how that relates to the amount of sediment, they did not provide any information related to that. So they just said, here's your drainage area, and here's how much, based off these calculations, here's what we would accept for your sediment reduction credits.
Thank you. So the sediment reduction, according to the DEP, would be the same, as long as the drainage area is the same, it would be the same for a high traffic road or a low traffic road.
Correct.
Thank you.
And there was a concern about what might be gathered in there. Is there anything dangerous about the material that gets gathered into the bump out?
I mean, it's largely sediment. Fine stones. Could be any salt or sand that any plows might, or plows that would put that on the roadways during the winter time during a storm or anything like that potentially. And then anything that gathers, that falls off of cars or anything of that nature. I know Public Works often removes the sediment, cleans it out on a very routine basis as well.
Do they have to use any protective equipment when they do that?
I don't know.
Okay. I mean, my sense is no, that it's just part of your usual, work gloves and whatnot, but nothing,
they just use rakes and shovels to shovel out the sediment capture, but they don't have to wear protective gear. It's not pollutants, it's sediments.
Yeah, it's called a pollutant reduction plan, but most of it's sediment. Go ahead, Mike.
Just clarify for me, because strangely enough, I don't have a good sense of sort of how we ended up with the proposal for 2 on Windale? Because I don't think that was originally what was in our earlier plan. So can you just take me through the thought process of how you ended up there? Because by the time it landed on my lap, it was 2 on Windale.
Yeah, so we initially came up with 1 when we were looking at the broad, we were looking at Narberth broadly. So we were trying to come up with 30 potential locations across the borough, one of them being on Windale. So then once we decided, okay, let's look at Windale further, like, you know, maybe this one that we have on Windale is a good, you know, candidate. Then we looked at that, and we took a closer look at Windale as a whole and said, hey, you know, actually, you know, we can get 2 bump outs on here. We can get a really good amount of sediment reduction on here, as opposed to just doing 1 in this location. So instead of doing 1 here, like, you know, if we put 2 here, we can get much more credit, and we can, you know, offer that additional benefit that way.
So just once you started looking at the street, you realized that it only captures, each one would only capture runoff from one side of the street, and therefore putting 2 in would be effective.
Putting 2 in would double, or, you know, not exactly double, but it would, you know, for the sake of conversation, it would effectively double the amount of credit that we would get by putting in 2 as opposed to 1. Yes.
And I know this is not an engineer calculation, but was there any consideration given to access to driveways and off-street parking in considering the stormwater bump outs? Again, maybe not an engineer question, but in looking at Dudley or Forever, you know, streets that are more dense and homes that do not have driveways. I know council, I think some council members have said, you know, that's a consideration in our mind as well.
Yeah, I mean, excuse me. Yeah, the driveways aren't something that we take into too much consideration.
Right.
You know, obviously we're not going to put a bump out, you know, in front of someone's driveway. So there's a little bit of that we look at, you know, for that. But largely, you know, we're trying to focus on the sediment reduction and what seems to be the most practical from that point of view.
And we had one of the initial locations had to be ruled out because the fire chief said it was too close to a fire hydrant, right?
Correct.
Okay. So, all right, more questions for Tony?
Yeah. What is the significance of the 50-foot right-of-way as opposed to apparently the 24-foot width of the road? And why is that noted on the plan at all? You know, does it have to do with drainage area, or, you know, what are we hoping for from the?
No, on the plans, it's a standard practice to notate the right-of-way width along roadways, and that, you know, the right-of-way is not just the from curb to curb, you know, the pavement piece of the road. It goes from, you know, where the property line ends on either side of the road, and that's, you know, that's the designated right-of-way that we mark.
So it's an additional, well, I'm just trying to do the math. So 50 minus 24 is 26. So there's 13 feet of additional right-of-way from beyond the road.
Yes.
On the side. Okay.
So there was also a resident concerned about whether that narrower roadway means that the calculations of flow were incorrect. You want to speak to that? That since the roadway was narrower, that the 50,000, the amount of flow that you calculated, did you take into account the narrowness of the road when you were calculating
No, the width of the road is not considered in the drainage area calculations. We look at the topography of the surrounding area to determine the drainage area.
Okay, so the width of the road is not relevant to the calculation.
Correct.
Wait, topography, so is the slope of the street relevant?
Yeah.
Because I was surprised how big a slope that is. So
Yeah, the slope of the road, yes, it is relevant because the slope is the topography, yes.
Determines how much water is running into the street. Okay.
Again, similar to Cindy's intro, this may not be an engineering approach. To what extent was, as part of the evaluation, one is, you know, the particulate capture. To what extent was there an assessment of what the impact would be on the actual people who live in the property. You know, if we take up the full width of the frontage of the property, let me say it differently. If a property has a frontage of 50 feet as opposed to a property that has a frontage of 150 feet, there's going to be a different impact on a 30-foot bump out. Was that considered in placement, or was it more strictly on water flow and the drainage?
It was based more strictly on water flow.
Thank you. Got it.
I think this is, that question segues sort of to our role as council in determining, policy and how to proceed. I think.
I just wanted to see if it was or was not considered.
I'm trying to segue to your point, Joe. I think that, all right, so I think it's fair to say that the spots that were proposed were primarily due to the sediment capture potential of the sites.
Yes.
That's right. Mm-hmm. So, I find myself, I think Dennis has left the room, but I find myself in agreement with Dennis that we don't want to be revisiting this every time we have a project, that we want to come up with some sort of framework, an ability to proceed that lets us get these projects built and also takes into account some of the nuance of the way the borough is set up. So I think we have a proposal right now, and I think in the past when we've looked at the stormwater bump outs, the main criterion has just been particulate matters, the flow. And it's, we've had concerns, but we haven't had this level of attention to that policy. And I think maybe the fact that this is a different sort of street is revealing some tension with that just looking at the storm, just looking at the reduction. Joe, do you want to talk about your suggested proposal here?
I think it's important for us to consider, in addition to the particulate capture, the impact that a particular placement has. For example, if there's a 50-foot frontage and the person's home, the front door leads to a walkway. Currently, that is the one place that the people can park in front of their home. Having a bump out there is going to be very disruptive to the daily life. Whereas if there's another space where there's a 150 foot of frontage and a 30-foot bump out takes up 30 feet of that frontage, that feels less disruptive, and I think it's important for us as council to think not only of the capture, but of the actual impact on day-to-day life that a particular bump out would have.
I have to say, this to my Windale neighbors, you're not going to appreciate this, but I will share. I have this speed bump in front of my house. We have a very narrow property. We do not have a driveway, and it takes up an entire spot. We lose the spot in front of our house. It is incredibly noisy. 9 out of 10 cars bottom out. I own it as a cut through. It is very loud and cumbersome. It actually never dawned on me to protest it, because it was like the engineers did the math. They told us we were in the center of the block. I know Iona is a massive problem. That's why I ran for council. So I hear you, and I appreciate that it is disruptive. For sure. We don't have a driveway, and we were able to make that accommodation on what is a densely parked street where more than half the houses don't have driveways, half the houses are multifamily. I appreciate the rub of added infrastructure. And if there's a way that we could say, I'm sorry, Jada, what you're saying, they're like, hey, we should consider, if we can still get the same capture rate and it only takes half of the frontage, that's something that's not Tony's job, but we could put it on his radar, like when you're making these calculations, can we consider that? Feels reasonable.
Okay, thank you. Thanks.
So can I just echo Joe's point a little bit, which is, the engineers are giving us an engineering report on what's most efficient. I don't think it's his job to take into consideration the frontage question or the disruption. But I do think that is actually our job. We get the engineering, hopefully we get alternatives, as we did, as we found out in the last meeting, that there were potential other alternatives on the street that we could look at, and I was willing to look at those and consider those. And I think my concern with this, to some extent, is, as one of the neighbors pointed out, and I was trying to keep track of who said what, and I lost track, so I apologize, a little bit of process and notification. I think we would have been better off having engaged, knowing that Windale was on our radar, to try to engage the neighbors initially. From just an information standpoint, I tried to make up for that by meeting with the neighbors, trying to provide as much information as I could. It would have been better if we had sort of done that at the front end as soon as we knew that Windale was on our radar screen, and I'd like to propose that we do that going forward. I'm nervous, Cindy, I really appreciate your view as Katie sort of articulated that, you know, every time we have, nobody wants a bump out for the most part, but somebody's got to have it, and somebody's got to show the pain. So I am concerned about the precedent of, you know, saying he who screams loudest doesn't get the bump out. I have sort of a little more faith in the public. I'd like to have more faith, but, you know, I'm feeling a little bit like no good deed goes unpunished here, in all honesty, because I opened up the possibility of considering other alternatives. I have to admit that sitting right here, I'm not sure how I'm going to vote. So, because I definitely think, you know, the one bump out absolutely makes sense. I don't have a problem with that. I am still struggling with whether 2 does, or whether we can still yet come up with some sort of compromise that could work.
So if we were going to try to operationalize Joe's proposal in a form that, say, our engineer could implement, it would be take a look at locations that do not take up the entire frontage of a house, that leave at least X amount of feet, I don't know, 20, let's say, 20 square feet of, which is enough to park a car. Yeah, linear feet, not square feet, thank you. 20 linear feet. I mean, the number could be adjusted, but find those, use those as your locations, and then come to us with that the location that has the best sediment reduction of all of those locations. So instead of looking at every single spot, including the ones that would just rule out the spots that completely block one neighbor's frontage. I think that would be a way to, I mean, we heard that from residents. I know, well, Joe obviously, I don't know what the rest of council thinks of that approach, but it mitigates some of
the question becomes what to do in this instance where, right, where we have that issue. If we're going to say that that should be a criteria going forward, then I feel like it should be a criteria tonight.
Well, yes. I think that if we were to agree to that, I think what we would do is we would ask Tony to come back with another location for us that would then be presented at the infrastructure committee meeting. And then further discussion at that point. So I think that in terms of timeline, that would keep us on the same timeline for construction. I know Maggie and Tony were having some discussions about how we could proceed if we decided to take another month with our deliberations.
Right, so Tony and I discussed logistics if we wanted to do that. So even if we were to agree on a plan tonight, given that the bid has to go out for 30 days, and then Pannoni needs some time to review the bids to provide us with a recommendation, because keep in mind this is a public bid, so it's the lowest responsible bidder is who ends up getting the award, and then Pannoni will evaluate those and provide us with a recommendation. If we were to wait until the July business meeting to approve the final design, Tony says that they would be able to get the bid advertisement out. So our meeting is July 16th. You said you'd be able to get the bid advertisement out the following Monday, the 20th. And then with 30 days, with then time to provide your review, Typically, we like to have all of the materials a week ahead of the meeting so that we can put the packets together, so that we can put those out to the public and send them to council. However, in order to provide the full 30 days for that, we would then get the review recommendation, the recommendation for award from Pannoni only 2 to 3 days prior to the business meeting. So we wouldn't have it ahead of time to the extent that would normally meet our standard procedures, but it doesn't violate anything to have the recommendation that close to the meeting. We would still have it listed on the agenda for consideration. You just wouldn't have the materials, but more than 2 or 3 days ahead of the meeting.
Can we be able to have a discussion at the infrastructure meeting?
And
Initial
then-
discussion?
Yes, so
Okay.
then that would, well, the infrastructure meeting would occur after, wait, which infrastructure meeting? Next,
The next one?
the next
That's
one?
the next one.
Next week.
That's next week, or probably not.
No, yeah, it would be,
So we would have to have the discussion at the council meeting.
Yeah, I don't believe that Tony will have redesigned plans ahead of
That's fine.
next Tuesday's meeting.
No, I didn't realize it was next Tuesday. My
So
apologies.
the July,
All right, so it'd have to be at the council meeting. All right.
it would
so-
have to be at the council meeting because otherwise the July infrastructure meeting is after the council meeting, and then we definitely would miss the bid award in August. If we postpone the bid award beyond August, then we would struggle with installation because then we get too late in the season for the plantings. So perennial plants can't really be planted much past October. Otherwise, they don't take root, and then they turn into not great things. And we're really trying hard to establish the perennials early on so that they can grow and mature.
All right.
The following year.
Can I ask, I'm sorry, real quick, Fred, just to,
Go ahead.
is there any advantage to splitting this and voting on the one pump out tonight?
No, because
No,
they get
okay.
awarded as, they'll go out
Okay.
together as a bid
Okay.
package.
Sorry, Fred.
Well, I was going to say, we've got a few options. One is one bump out, one is 2 bump outs as written. And the third is send it back to Tony and find another location for the bump out that's taking up the entire frontage of the house. And then vote on that.
I think the presumption is that there's going to be one bump out. I mean, whether we formally vote on that or not, maybe I'm misreading the room.
At least one bump out.
At least one.
At least
Yeah,
one
at
bump
least
out, yeah.
one, the one that.
I think the argument for the bump outs has not changed.
Right.
The general,
Right.
this is what we have to do. This is,
Right.
as I said, we only have limited options that are in our PRP that we can do.
I just want to set expectations for the
Mhm.
people in the room that tell me if I'm wrong, which is vote counting, we are going to go forward with at least one bump out in front of the house where the landowner has not objected.
94.
94, thank you. And so the question really is whether there will be a second, and if so, where.
Was there a decision made before the second bump out?
What do you mean?
In February, or?
We voted as a
voted
council
on it.
to say that to proceed with 2, back in whatever, was that February or whatever?
Dan?
Just a quick question. How long does it take to do these calculations for like what I guess you're looking at what the benefit would be for that? Because I think there's around 25 homes on there. Could you do all of them and then go to the infrastructure committee and say, here's what would be good?
So
more for Tony first.
Let's let Tony answer and then we can talk about
So-
logistics and that.
How long would it take to come up with the sediment reduction credits? Well, assuming that we look at it on each property, like almost each property along the road,
Maybe not tied to the property, but like at
but tied to those locations.
a whole bunch of locations, so you could say, okay, here's what we could do.
We could turn something around like that in about
A week?
Yeah.
It wouldn't be every property because especially if we're
But it would be all the spots, right? Like,
Well,
eligible.
Yeah.
We're now saying we're going to limit it to spots where it wouldn't take up an entire frontage area. And there's some spots that are near the drain spout.
Yeah.
The
Just
Goshen
past the
site.
drain spout.
There's no effect, they're ineffective.
my thought would be like, I would want to have that to see the universe of options and then pick the best option. So that way you don't get the moving it around
Yeah.
comments.
I would strongly suggest that if we go that route, we're going to take the one that has the most reduction. unless there's like a, you know, unless the fire chief shows up and tells us, again, it's a terrible idea. Like, I think that ultimately with my position is that I agree with those who think that, you know, we can't just be spending huge amounts of time on this. We need to determine a policy that we think is right, let our staff implement it, and then unless something is extraordinarily wrong as a result, you know, we proceed. So our default should be to, you know, to accept the recommendations that are given to us by our staff in general, which is what we've done in the past. So
I agree that there needs to be some sort of objective criteria, and I do sympathize with the concern that it's taking up the entire curb frontage. I think we should avoid that if possible. So if we can like build that into the criteria, I'm okay with that. But I agree that we have so many bump outs that we are legally required to put in that we can't be doing this for every single route.
Tony, if I can just quick ask, so you said about a week, about how many engineering hours would that take?
I'd say between 8 and 12.
8 and 12.
all right. So I mean that is an added expense, right? Engineering hours are an added expense, but
Well, to Jean's point, I do think that we need to set a criteria. So as I said, again, we can't do this 19 more times.
Right.
You know, please do not consider something that takes up more than 75% of the frontage
Right.
or whatever. or
Right.
80% of the frontage.
let's kick that to infrastructure.
Yeah, I was gonna say, we'll take
give them a
that on.
recommendation,
Yep.
and they'll do it for the future.
What about, Fred mentioned 20 linear, leaving something that leaves 20
Yeah,
linear
I
feet.
think it's a better way to do it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
leave
Whatever
space for a
it is.
car.
Standard parking
Leave
space.
space for a car, right? I mean, that's mostly what people are concerned about.
We can figure that out in infrastructure.
Yeah, we'll let infrastructure come up with a more specific requirement.
Yeah, I was just throwing that out.
And I will say, I do think this is a good example of where getting feedback from the community gets us better results. I mean, I really do feel like, you know, when we first got the plan in, you know, we weren't looking at frontage, we weren't thinking about that. I mean, in all honesty, it wasn't in my mind. And, you know, hearing from the folks, you know, I will say, you know, I took the safety concerns seriously. I know some people don't agree with me, but, you know, I talked to the fire marshal. I don't think, my own conclusion was that it's not a safety concern, given from the chief, that, you know, that is not a factor, because that would be a factor across the borough. And, as a former member of public health and safety, I take that pretty seriously, but I don't see that as a concern in this instance. But I do think we can get some more informed decision making here, and I appreciate the fact that the rest of you at the table are willing to go along with me on that.
Yeah, and I want to thank Jim for proposing a standard process that can allow us to actualize or like highlight specific policy level things that can guide decision.
Thank you. I'll just add that I realize that a lot of resident concerns are not being taken into account here, just because we as a council have determined that we think the stormwater bump outs are an effective and safe way to address our concerns. And I know that, you know, there is disagreement among some of the folks here, but I am hopeful that this will produce a better solution that will be more acceptable to residents and also can be used in the future. So.
I recognize you're not taking comments from the floor, but you do realize that the one bump out that you're approving is taking up the entire frontage of a house?
The south side.
Objection from that person. I mean, I
But we
just-
were never asked, and we're across the street directly, and it does impact us, and I apologize.
We are, yes.
But that's very important to note, I think. I think it's very important because it's directly across the street from our house, and we were never asked. And it is going to affect our property value, and it is going to affect us directly.
Thank you. I think we have our directive for Tony. So I'll take a motion to, any further discussion from council? Okay. I'll take a motion to table 10A this time.
I so move.
Okay, seconded. Further discussion? All right, let's vote to table item 10A. Okay, this is tabled. Thank you. 10B, let's move to 102 North Essex.
Yeah, move to approve resolution 2026-12, preliminary final land development for 102 North Essex.
All right. Thank you, everyone. I'm going to take a moment. Okay. So we have the...
Thank you, everybody.
Thanks,
Thank you very much.
We'll let the 102 North Essex team come forward here and hear your presentation.
I'm going to step out.
Okay.
Want to get anybody else started?
No. We're just going to take a minute. We're going to take a recess for about 2 minutes.
I need to correct one thing for me, which is we did send, she reminded me that we did send postcards out before
the infrastructure.
Before the infrastructure meeting to the affected neighbors. So I did say something about
Yeah, the
getting
notification
notice, and
was
we did send notice out, and I just want to clarify that.
So we had a motion, I didn't catch a second.
For what?
For this agenda item.
The second was, who brought,
I gave the second, right?
Joe seconded it?
Yep.
All right, thanks. And are we live again?
We are live, audio's back on, so we're ready to get started.
Okay, great. Meeting is back in session. Thanks, everybody, for the indulgence, and we'll proceed with the 102 North Essex land development.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you for having us. My name is Bob Careless. I'm an attorney for the applicant before you tonight. Just so you know, we have two members of our design team here, Andrew Malmstrom from Site Engineering Concepts and Aaron Miller from CVP Architects. I'm going to let Aaron come up and go through the project, which I'm sure as you're familiar with is proposing the preservation of the existing Citizens Bank building, the partial demolition of the existing one-story portion along Essex Avenue, and for the addition of 4 apartments. So it'll be a leveling out of a 2-story structure there with, as you'll see, landscaping enhancements, new stormwater management, and a commercial space for our anchor tenant in our borough, which is a use that obviously is near and dear to my heart. Just so, I mean, I'll be brief with my comments, but just so everyone's familiar with it, we went through the approval process here. We have a recommendation of approval from your HARD, from your Shade Tree Commission. We will comply with your borough engineer's letter. Will comply with your landscape architect's letter. We have a clean zoning review. I received a copy of the proposed resolution with the conditions of approval. I reviewed them with the applicant, and we are in agreement with them. So with that said, I'll turn it over to Aaron, who can run through the plans. I'm sure many of you have been following the project, but it's the first time I think we're presenting as a team to Borough Council. Aaron can go through the plans, and then we're happy to answer any questions that you might have.
Sure. If you have access to the presentation and the architectural renderings, let's go through that set and try to make it brief. If not, I have also brought hard copies I can pass out.
I did not receive a request ahead of time to have that, so
Okay.
I do not have.
We also will have a thumb drive if you'd like to.
Yes.
He has. He has one.
Do you want to hand these out?
Sure. We would like to take one and pass it around.
Thank you very much.
We're also
You all.
Okay. You know what, Dana, you should keep it, because I've got.
They're going around the other side.
And I.
We got, there's another.
I just really like big documents.
We have.
You like what?
Big documents.
Sold then.
Okay. Yeah, that guy.
It's definitely the nicest.
You know what, I'm wondering if Maggie wants some of these to leave in the office, if you have some extra.
Yeah.
Do you want a couple extra copies?
Sure.
We have some in the office already.
Scoot to the side here.
Thanks, man.
All right. So as Bob mentioned, the proposal is to preserve the bank on the corner and to demolish the more recent addition, one-story addition between the corner and the adjacent 104 North Essex. To provide space for the anchor tenant in Narberth, the wine and spirit store, to relocate to this location and to provide additional wholesale space for them. Also, keeping the two-story massing of 4 apartments on the second floor, not going higher than that. Also, as mentioned, we did have several meetings with HARB, took all of their recommendations and material considerations and implemented that in the designs. Go to the next slide. This is in the historic district, just an example of where it's located, and that we did go through the review process with HARB and got their approval. Next slide, please. Here you can see the historic photo of the existing bank from 1943, and adjacent to that structure that no longer exists. So you can see that the one-story portion next to it was constructed at a later date, and that's what we're removing and keeping two-story at the corner in place. To the right in the plan, you'll see the yellow outline of what is being removed. So essentially everything but that two-story, more historic portion of the bank. Next slide, please. We provided context slides as part of the HARB review. I think they asked for this to verify sort of appropriateness of materials and massing. So along Essex Avenue, there's one-story, two-story commercial that goes down a portion of the block. And then the surrounding neighborhood is primarily 3-story twins, residential with pitched roofs. Materials range from cedar or from shake siding to plank siding and some masonry, which we incorporated into our design per HARB's review recommendation after our first review. So next slide.
I'm sorry to interrupt you. When you said the neighboring ones that are the twins, is that on Dudley or is that in Essex?
Further down Essex, they're
Further
twins.
down.
Yeah,
Okay.
after the commercial ends, like maybe you can start to see it.
I got you. Thank you.
That last photo, and then if we go to the next
very
slide.
good. Thank you very much.
And then they're continued there on the opposite side of the street as well. And then there's the new construction across the street, relatively new construction. Next slide.
It's new for us.
This is just Haverford Avenue, existing bank that we're preserving. A little portion in the back is being demolished, and that'll be where the apartment entry will be located. And the existing parking is going to remain with landscape enhancements. Next slide, please. And then across the street, you can see on the left-hand side where the PLCB, the Fine Wine and Spirit store, is currently located in a smaller space, and then we just have vegetation and train tracks further down that side. Next slide. And then on Dudley, this is all primarily residential. Here you can start to see the varying materials and still the consistent residential construction. And a continuation on the north side of Dudley, and then that would be the rear of our property highlighted in yellow, the parking area. Next, please. So this is the material palette that was approved by Historic Architectural Review Board. On Essex Avenue, the facade of the bank, as we saw in the facade of the proposed entry to the Fine Wine and Spirit store, would be the masonry buff brick. Cast stone sills and coping, and then the residential above, there's a mix of shake siding, hardy shake siding, and also lap siding. And then the pitched roofs would be dimensional asphalt shingles. And we also have some metal accents, and the windows
are going to be a tan color. Next slide, please. Just another rendering without the trees, so you can see more of what the facade would look like. We've complied with all of the fenestration and zoning code regulations, which dictate some of the form that you're seeing here as far as the canopies, the amount of window glazing, the sill height, those kinds of things. And also from the harbor view, there was the request to incorporate more greenery up on the decks for the apartments, so we've included that as well. Next slide. And here's what the tree that will remain. It's obviously bigger than that, so we are planning on preserving that. This is a view from Haverford looking sort of north, or east, towards the apartment entry. We've also provided a loading area, ramp and stairs up to access the wholesale location. And the plan is to provide some type of mural or artwork on the back of the wholesale, which is clad in the red metal. Next slide, please. This is a view of the apartment entry. Once again, complying with the code for the vestibule width of the entry width of 5 feet. Also, trying to enhance the design with these. We have 3 pitched roof forms. One of them is over the elevator and stair, vertical circulation, and the other are over the living and dining spaces of the residential apartments. Next slide. Here you actually see the site plan. The entire first floor, with the exception of the elevator and stairs, is for the Fine Wine and Good Spirits store. You can see where it says existing to remain. That's the portion of the existing building that will be occupied by the part of the retail, as well as the expansion along Essex Avenue, and then the wholesale portion in the back with loading access. And also, extensive new planting by the landscape architect. Additionally, just a few other things to point out. We have the required short-term bicycle parking on Essex. The long-term covered bike parking is to the west yet, and then enclosed trash enclosure. We also have, in that location.
How many units of bicycle parking were required?
12. Well,
12
we have 12, but how many were required?
I believe 11 are required.
And that's for the business use primarily, or that's for? I was trying to figure out how those calculations are.
So,
relatively new.
So it's for the long-term bicycle parking. It's 9 spaces for the 4 residential units. So it's 1 per bedroom. So
1 per bedroom.
So there's currently 9 bedrooms.
So 2 bedrooms. That's the okay.
Yes, and then there's 1.5 spaces required for the commercial use. So that rounded up to 2.
It's also 2 accessible parking spaces, 2 electric vehicle parking spaces, and stormwater management. Next slide, please. There was some questions about the loading and trash pickup during the Planning Commission review. I believe that's a hard review as well. We looked at that, or the engineers looked at that early on, and they have both the trash pickup diagram, and the loading for the Fine Wine and Good Spirits store, indicating how the truck turning and delivery will happen. So if you want to check those out in more detail, they're in the land development plans. Next slide, please.
While we're parking, there are 4 residential units, is that right?
That is correct, yes.
And how many parking spots for the residents? Oh, if that's coming up, never.
Well,
I
can double check,
can
or I
talk
can go
about
back
it
and count it.
now. So the residential and the way the parking credits work. So right now, it's 1 per unit for residential, and then there's also a visitor space parking requirement of 0.1 per unit. So that adds up to 5 parking spaces.
Got it, thank you so much. Sorry if I took you out of order.
That's okay.
Thank you.
That's the required, do you know me providing?
The total provided parking spaces is 17. So that's between.
There's a maximum. We're not allowed to provide more than.
That's correct. More than 18. So. Right there.
And it's combined for the business and the residential.
That's correct.
There's a formula for that.
Okay, this similar to the landscape plan, first floor plan, you can see the retail entrance on Essex, and then the apartment entry on Haverford Avenue.
Sorry.
Yes.
Is there just one entrance for the retail?
Yes.
There's not a second entrance?
That's correct.
So.
There's a second entrance for the wholesale, or there is an entrance for the wholesale, but there are not 2 retail entrances, if that makes sense. There's just one entrance to the main retail space on Essex.
So are all of the customers going in through Essex Avenue?
Correct, unless you want to go pick up a case or, you know.
Sorry, what's wholesale? I don't understand that.
Those would be, I guess, restaurants or
Yeah,
others
just part of
that
their-
are
that's a normal
purchasing.
part of any PLCB
purchasing
store.
bulk.
Have you had that conversation on the planning commission? I'm just curious because I know,
they talked
I've talked to this leader.
Sorry, go ahead, ask your question.
Just talking to the liquor store, I know they always say like, a lot of their customers buy cases and they park right by the entrance. So I don't know much about it.
Anything bulk, they can park in the back and go out to wholesale. That's what it's designed for, any sort of bulk purchase.
Yeah, next slide, please. Second floor, 4 apartments. One of the apartments is located in the original bank, second floor of the original bank, with a stair to through the pilot house to the roof access. And all 4 of the apartments have outdoor roof terrace space. Next slide, please. Unless,
And the 3rd floor?
well, just to the right.
That's to the right?
Yes.
That's like patio?
Roofs, yeah, roof access and then their patio, taking up a portion of the roof.
Thank you.
And then generally, this is the roof plan. The shaded areas indicate the outdoor terrace space. And you can sort of see the 3 pitched roof sections over the living and dining spaces of the units, as well as over the roof, the elevator and the stair.
How is it, the regulation of the 50%, like how do you enforce that with the actual residents?
The regulation, you mean the roof terrace percentage of the actual roof area? There will be railings around it. They will have concrete pavers on pedestals flush with their floor as they come out, and then the rest of the roof is, pitched to drains, and it's just a roof membrane, so it wouldn't really be like
something they want to be
place you'd really want to be on. Yeah. Next slide. These elevations highlight the different materials that we're proposing. I think we need to spend too much time on here. We have already reviewed the material palette, and I think the renderings are more indicative of the materials than these per se. Here you get a broader view of the back with the bike storage and then the proposed murals along the back. We also brought some of the masonry, the brick that we were using at the front as a water table around the back. Next slide. And this is just on the property line between 104 and 104 North Essex and the proposed project. The building sections, this would be cut from Haverford towards 104 North Essex. There is a basement in the existing bank that will remain and will be mechanical space, which it's currently used for. And this one shows that there is a step down between the retail in the front and the wholesale in the back. And you can also see the volumes of space over the living and dining rooms where we're proposing the pitched roofs. Next slide. And then just as part of our application, there was, identifying the different architectural elements of the design. I mentioned before, cast stone windowsills at the masonry. You have sort of a little projecting soldier course of brick at the coping of this terrace where you see the railing. It's on the left side there. And then in order to get some shadow and depth to the windows, we're proposing this detail on the right, which gets the windows set back into the facade to create a bit more shadow and depth to the window. And then we just have one more section perspective on the next slide. Got the apartment entry. Proposing a canopy over that entrance, metal access panel we saw in the renderings, and then at the second floor, that will have a nice tall vaulted ceiling for the residents when they get off the elevator. And that is all. If anyone has any questions, just let me know.
Oh,
Yeah.
not questions, but
Okay.
comment. Does anybody have a question before?
Go ahead and make your comment.
This is such a beautiful example of an adaptive reuse. I mean, it really is magnificent. I've walked around with pictures of this on my phone because so many folks are concerned, right, about the vacancies in our town, very rightfully so. And this is one example where I've been able to say, this is what is possible and this is what is happening. And the community enthusiasm for this has been overwhelming. So just that, it's beautiful.
Thank you.
I mean, okay, then two other quick comments. And Jim, you correct me if I'm wrong. I do think it's important for folks to understand in the public that the state store was going to move because they wanted to expand to be a superstore. If Tim did not find the space, they were going to move outside of Narberth. The NBA has been very clear there are two anchor institutions left in Narberth, the post office and the state store. And that they depend on folks coming outside of Narberth to come in and stop to mail something and buy booze and then buy cheese and a book or whatever. So I very much see this not only as something that's attractive, but as us preserving an anchor institution. And Tim, again, correct me if I'm wrong, but the state has to approve this and then that clock starts.
That's right.
The state is not going to keep this lease and project open in infinity. So you have a hard deadline on when this needs to be completed in order to keep that very secure and lucrative tenant.
That's right. Yeah, they gave us until basically the fourth quarter of 27, which has us hopefully starting this fall.
So we approve this, then you start in the fall.
Yeah.
It must be done by.
Yeah, and we're working with everything that we can do, like to be proactive on things. We're working with Kevin. There's a dumpster behind the building now. He gave us a green light to do interior demolition, just partitions, ceiling tile, lighting, getting a jump on that. We've jumped on the plans, even though we didn't have approvals. We rolled the dice and started with construction drawings for the liquor store and with the design set, the permit set for the actual building, because that's I don't want to speak for you, but like a 3-month-ish process. And if you do it linear, then you're just pushing it out, you're pushing the start date out. So we're doing everything we can to
This is teed
to make
up
this fast.
to hit the state's clock.
Yeah, that's right.
Thank you.
Other questions about the design project? Janice, are you taking this? Yeah,
I do, but go ahead.
Go ahead. Because mine's not specifically.
All right, did this go in front of planning commission?
Yes.
I did not see a planning commission letter, is that?
They didn't generate a formal letter.
Okay, did they sign off on the waivers?
Yes, that was the summary of the planning commission discussion and their recommendations are summarized in the memo that's in your packet.
Okay, I saw that, okay, I just didn't see that.
Let's tackle the waivers later, after we finish the discussion.
What comes under general discussion?
if you have other concerns that are not the.
Okay,
The waivers are clearly, council gets to decide what to do on the waivers, like that's.
Okay.
Absolutely. Some of the rest of this stuff, we have less discretion, it's more,
Okay.
if it complies with our code, or if they say they're gonna comply with the review
Sure.
letters.
So I have a concern about maintaining pedestrian passability during the project build. I can't say I was a fan of how we had a commenter here who lives right there downtown and had big issues with the sidewalks being torn up and left kind of in an impassable state. And I really feel like we've got to avoid that at all costs. And I wondered, however, I really truly believe we're in a better state now as a borough to monitor that kind of thing and to address any concerns. So I was wondering if we could talk a little bit about what we're going to do to keep those sidewalks passable or reroute them when necessary.
I would just give 2 comments. One, you've got Kevin, who we meet with on a regular basis, sometimes daily, who's going to control that. We don't control it. He's going to tell us what to do. I don't want to make excuses, but I had sympathy for what he said, that gentleman. Total sympathy. And I wouldn't make any excuses other than to say, in our defense, this was a post-COVID. We got our approvals, I think it was like a month or 2 before COVID, and it just cascaded throughout that project. We sat for 14 or 15 months at the end of that project because PICO. We've done a project since then that was on time, on budget, up at the lofts.
The little gym project.
Yeah. That's not to be repeated. But again, talk is cheap. Kevin knows us well. Kevin's going to dictate, or the borough's going to dictate how we do things. So.
I'll add to that. The common procedure is before we commence construction, we would be required to have a pre-construction meeting with the borough where the borough zoning officer and the engineer would attend that meeting. Sidewalk protections, pedestrian protections are all a common element of that pre-construction meeting. It's required before we actually commence construction. So those protections are required to be in place. So those discussions would happen there. And I think, to Tim's point, it sounds like Kevin and Tim have a good enough rapport with that. Now we could implement that to the borough's satisfaction.
Sort of a similar point to James was, I actually personally yelled at the guys who were blocking the sidewalk, the handicap sidewalk, because I was going to the train station every day, and every day I would see them blocking the handicap. And I'm wondering if we can potentially avoid a repeat of that. I don't know whether you're planning to use the parking lot for construction staging with those vehicles that solves that problem for this property.
Yeah, we also have a contractor that's super familiar with the borough. The other contractor and the subcontractors were harder to control. It was a trickle down. Someone would complain, it would go to the borough, it would come to us, we would tell them to move, rinse and repeat. It's a different contractor.
Okay.
So just to summarize those last 2, it sounds like what I'm hearing is the sidewalks will be accessible throughout the construction period. Is that what I'm hearing?
I don't know if there was a brief period when we were doing certain aspects of our work where we had to do the Jersey barricades
there you go.
On the side of the street, but there's always safe pedestrian passage.
Yeah. There'll be safe pedestrian passage the whole time. I should have said it better. Thank you.
Okay. Let's talk about the waivers then. So, summarize the waiver requests. You should do it, John.
Sure. The first one is to file a preliminary plan at the same time as the final plan. Again, normally a process would be kind of a preliminary plan. That gets approved. They fill in an additional level of detail needed to meet the final level plan approval. Then that final plan is approved. This plan provided all of the level of details for both the preliminary plan and the final plan. So they're asking for you to review it as a preliminary final plan. And I imagine the reason that's being done is because of those timelines that we're under. And again, it was approved, or I should say recommended by the commissions based upon the final preliminary
Right, and none of our review letters found problems with the presentation, or found that it did not meet the standards of
It meets the provisions of, will comply with the requirements of the town plan.
Okay. Anybody have objections to this waiver? Or
Yeah,
any questions about
one
it?
of the things that we've talked about to make it easier for builders under the zoning code is to allow for this.
Yeah.
No problem with that.
All right, I don't see any concerns with this waiver.
Automatically.
Yeah, right. Well, that's what I'm
I
saying.
think if someone submits something super sketchy, they're gonna have to come back. Yeah.
Well, then we just wouldn't approve it as a final
Right.
plan, so.
I guess you're right. Anyway, regardless, I'm not hearing any issues with this waiver. All right, next.
Second is a waiver from the request, the requirement to submit a transportation impact study. Frankly, there's a little uncertainty as to whether or not that even would be required because of this project. I think they're asking it for that under caution. And I believe I don't want to speak for all the reasons, but I think the idea is it's very limited in the apartments. And for the retail space, literally it's right across the street. So it'd be the same.
It's the same use that's across the street, is what you're saying.
Correct.
So it would not generate any additional traffic than what is currently going in across the street.
Well, actually, it will eliminate it because there's actually dedicated parking for the,
Well,
yeah.
Well,
But it would
dedicated
not be
parking
more-
implies that there
right.
will be vehicle circulation. But I think the point is, why would we do a traffic impact study on a very small adaptive reuse project when
Yeah.
we actually want people circulating right down?
Yeah, yeah.
So Planning Commission had not recommended that we grant this one out of hand. They had recommended a narrow look at pedestrian and bicycle safety around the site and possibly looking at the MCPC study of that property, right? And looking at some of the
active
potential,
transportation.
potential improvements around that property based around transportation. So how did you respond to Planning Commission's request or their suggestion?
I don't know how we responded to the planning commission, but I think the point remains that it's circulation that's already within the borough, right? So, and my understanding is a lot of the infrastructure on the Haverford and Haverford-Essex crossing is part of the borough's long-term capital look anyway. The Dudley crosswalk, I mean, it's not clear to me, frankly, I'll be honest, it's not clear to me what infrastructure they're looking to improve from Dudley. If it's additional painting, I don't think that's objectionable to us to make that a more vibrant crosswalk or crossing space. But in terms of pedestrian circulation, it's foot traffic that's already in the borough with the addition of 4 apartments. So it's an expense that I think when you look at waivers, you're looking at hardships with small ages, justification for hardships with small ages. And for a project of this scale, it doesn't seem necessary, especially where there's been other projects where the transportation side has been waived on a much larger scale.
I would agree that that's very reasonable.
You are proposing improvements to the Dudley crosswalk, is that right?
Yeah, so currently we're proposing striping for a crosswalk there as well as a stop bar for that stop sign. Currently there is none, so we're providing additional visibility for that crosswalk for safety of the pedestrians, as well as additional ADA ramps at our side of the curb, as well as our stretch of Dudley for the driveway entrance as well.
Okay. And is there anything at I'm trying to think of the Essex side, is that where the crosswalk currently is at Essex? Okay. So is there any change proposed to that, or what's?
Only to repair currently what's existing, anything that's damaged during construction.
Okay.
Shadow is proposed for the portion of the street.
For Haverford Avenue,
On the active transportation.
That's something we'll address.
But like one share, I
Yeah.
don't know if it.
Yeah, like I said, that's just me.
It's not gonna, this won't affect that.
That's
No, I'm saying if we asked them to add a share, like one share on their side of the property.
Yeah.
That's one share on it, so
Yeah.
that's
That
what I
makes
mean.
sense.
No.
I have a question about the crosswalk and the stop bar that's in the plan set. Is that something that, I imagine it's something that Public Works will prefer to do rather than have them, or I wasn't sure if there's like a fee in lieu of like to have them take care of it, or
I could always speak to that. I mean, yeah, if we were doing a capital project where the borough would be paying for the construction, then it would be more advantageous for DPW or for Public Works to do some of those those minor improvements like striping. But since this is a private development, it would either be the developer putting that cost up or Public Works, in which case it would, for the borough it would be better for the private developer to do that work.
Okay. I wasn't sure like if there was a consistency issue in terms of the.
No, because they would comply with the standards that we would enforce, so we can discuss that during the pre-con meeting. They'll know what our specifications are, and that will be what is installed.
I just want to point out, we've made some statements that it'll be the same volume of traffic, I think, as what's currently at the liquor store. But I think this has the wholesale, so it's bigger.
Yeah,
different. I don't think it invalidates the conversation we're having. I just want to.
No, but we also made the point in planning that it's moving into a building that if you didn't do the liquor store, it's an existing big commercial building that you would do another bank in or something else that would generate traffic.
Agreed.
So.
Thank you. And then the other is in terms of traffic safety. I'm not suggesting we do a transportation impact study, but there will be more cars going on to Dudley than there are currently. Currently, people kind of go into this lot and they park and stay all day. But this will be more 20-minute, 30-minute visits to the liquor store, and then leaving through Dudley and going to Haverford. Just want to acknowledge that there'll be greater volume coming out of this lot onto Dudley than has been experienced in years.
Dudley runs towards Haverford.
Dudley
That's
runs
correct.
right, I was just going to say, they exit the lot and they're right at the corner.
Forced to the left, yeah. It's just that corner.
So we will be, they are improving the stop bar won't matter, because they're just turning on. I'm trying to think. They're proposing an improved crosswalk to help pedestrian safety out of there.
Oh, I agree. I just want to point out a reality,
Yeah.
that's all. That there will be.
Do you have a suggestion for how to address that? Because the floor's open.
Is that a reason for a transportation impact or some, excuse me, let me take a step back. To provide a pedestrian and bicycle assessment to improve safety at Dudley Ave. Is that part of the reason why Planning Commission may have suggested that? I don't know, I wasn't at that meeting. Okay.
You mean at that intersection?
Yeah.
Yes.
Were you at that meeting, Maggie? Do you remember? No? Okay, no, it was.
I think it was just like a very brief statement.
Yeah.
You were there?
Okay.
Tony.
Oh, Tony was there, right?
Yeah,
So
I was there. It sounded like they were concerned about making sure that that just the general pedestrian improvements around the building were addressed in some way, which is kind of what they've already done with improving the handicap ramps and repairing any sidewalk work that may get damaged during construction and the striping as well. So I think that what they're proposing more or less addresses that.
Okay. And there is a stop sign before they hit the crosswalk. Is that right?
Currently?
There is currently
Yeah,
a
so
stop sign.
they come out, they hit a stop sign, and then, unless they run the stop sign.
Are you referring to the stop sign or the new stop bar that they're proposing? So the stop.
They are both before the crosswalk. It would be, it's kind of in conjunction. It's
Okay,
just,
so there would be a stop bar to also be a visible barrier, in addition to the stop sign.
I don't know if there's any way to do this, but do we know the expectation of, how many cars show up to shop at the liquor store at any particular time, so that we know that the parking in the back is going to be adequate? I'm particularly thinking about the condo folks who are down there who have expressed concern on other occasions about people blocking their driveways, etc. So I want to make sure that there's the expectation that there will be adequate parking, not for the residents, but for the in and out of the people who are going in and out of the liquor store.
Can I ask a quick question on that? Because I think Mr. Careless covered this earlier. We have maximum parking requirements. and y'all are literally at the maximum.
Right.
So you're nowhere close to the minimum that was required.
Right. I want to be able to tell the condo residents that we expect, if we can, that we don't expect. I'm anticipating a text or an email from those residents.
It's more parking than is at Station Circle.
Yeah, that's.
Right, well, that's what I was trying to.
That's, yeah.
It's actually better.
The beauty of Narberth is I don't know that people come just for the liquor store. I think they may come for other uses, and the liquor store is part of that. So I don't know if you can quantify a car that's coming directly or just intending for the liquor store. Hopefully, I think the expectation is by moving across the street, you still maintain the same level of foot traffic going in there as well.
Yeah.
It seems to me it's a lot of foot traffic, more than people driving in just to go to the liquor store, like if they're driving.
But it's foot traffic already on the borough, right? I mean, that's.
All right, any other concerns about this waiver? Anyone have problems with it? Okay. Final waiver?
It's the requirement for dedication of additional right-of-way along Haverford Avenue, and I don't, is it that there's no right-of-way?
So currently, where our legal right-of-way runs along the existing bank building, and then it actually extends partially into Haverford Avenue. So technically part of the street is owned by the owner right now. Our proposed solution to this is to provide a partial dedication for the ultimate right-of-way out to the new public sidewalks. That ends at the existing bank building because we wouldn't dedicate right-of-way within the existing building.
So you're going to dedicate the right-of-way that would be the right-of-way today, no, it's not.
It's not the full ultimate right-of-way that's in the code, but it is currently being used as right-of-way.
Which is obviously a benefit to the borough as well, to have that. It's not in current.
Correct.
And we're not obviously going to have them, I mean, to make the project work, you have them push the existing building.
That's correct.
Yeah. And you're not going to be able to preserve the building, you're going to push it back.
So you feel this is appropriate?
Yes.
Okay. Any questions or concerns about this waiver?
Nope.
I'll also note that we had the resident at 104 North Essex who've been coming to meetings and have been concerned about the drainage, but I understand from a letter that was sent out that you reached an agreement with them and that they are no longer, that we over here. I forgot you were right there.
That is not her.
Oh, that's you.
That's not her.
Sorry, I forgot it's you. Anyway, you're currently satisfied with the, okay, perfect. All right, any other council concerns or questions?
Not at all.
All right, I think we're ready to vote then. So we have, we're going to vote to adopt Resolution 2026-12, preliminary final land development approval with, for 102 North Essex, with the 3 waivers as requested.
So moved?
All right, all those in favor?
Oh, wait,
We
we did a second.
Well,
we did.
we're already discussing it, so we're just moving to a vote.
Oh,
I'm just
okay.
summarizing what we're voting on.
Yeah,
We already
okay.
started that, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay, so we're voting on the resolution. All those in favor? All right, it's unanimous.
Thank you.
Make it pretty.
Thank you. Thank you.
We really appreciate it.
Tell them I say congrats. Nice.
All right.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, appreciate it. 10C is next. The UCC code changes.
Move to approve whatever language on the agenda is.
Ordinance 1072, Chapter 240.
Move to approve ordinance 1072, chapter 240 and or move to approve advertisement for adoption.
I second.
Maggie, you want to summarize?
Turn this one over to the solicitor.
Okay, John, can you summarize?
So this is an ordinance that all municipalities are doing right now through the area. It's and we're requiring under the state UCC code to adopt the new revised, and it is 2021, even though we're in 2026, international building codes. And again, right now in our code, we have, I think, 2018. So this is already set up in a way which it lists all of the code that we incorporate, so then our code enforcement officers enforce those codes pursuant to the 2018 form codes. And that's what I've listed here under A, revised up to 2021, except for electrical code and the ADA accessibility code. But again, those are the ones that have been adopted by the state. So it really is just revising our codes to identify which ones we want to adapt in line with the state. There is going to be another technical comment change to this. Is in addition to just adopting the codes, every municipality can make sort of alterations and changes and additions to those codes to suit that municipality. We are in consultation with both the fire marshal and code enforcement officer. I received some changes that would need to be made, not substantively, so everything would be enforced the same, but due to the changes between 2018 and 2021, the sections are as referred to. So we have to go through and sort of compare and revise to make sure all the sections for the additions are changed. And that work was done by Kevin Walsh, and there's some additional technical items by Mr. Hampton, our fire marshal. But again, should not be any substantive change. For council's purposes, this is again a technical revision, revising our ordinances from 2018 to 2011.
Quick one. Is there anything added or changed other than what's required?
There are, it's not that it's required, but there's different options. For example, I think one of the large ones that we discussed, maybe it was around 2018, was burning. And the idea, I think, they used to not allow any burning in the borough, and then they changed it to technically allow the burning in your devices, which again is an option of the fire code as long as it has all these different requirements. That's an example of a change of how do you want to enforce the burning code. Do you want to have this option or this option? We, through our fire marshal, decided to choose that option. Again, other things are maybe requirements on the fire code of the knock boxes, meaning having the keys available near the entryway. And just things, we have a very good and experienced fire marshal, so he knows what needs to be in there. So I think he might have more specific requirements for the benefit of the borough that we have. That would just be the basic. But nothing new that's not in place. So as a resident, you should not be experiencing any new enforcement to practical changes.
So any local optionality, those decisions were made, they're just being carried through, there's no changes.
Correct. Yeah. Right. Just revised to adopt in 2021.
Yep.
Okay, any other questions? And this has been recommended by F&A, who got this? Which committee is this with?
This came to F&A.
All right, let's vote to advertise ordinance 1072, chapter 240, uniform construction codes. All those in favor? It's unanimous. 10D, Shade Tree Commission.
I move that Borough Council appoints Carrie Sanchurico to the Shade Tree Commission for a term ending on December 31st, 2028.
Second.
Okay. Is that,
Yeah, my neighbor.
yeah.
Cindy and I met with him to talk about potential appointment. So, want to get involved in some commission.
Get his hands dirty?
Yeah, get his hands dirty, I guess. So we talked to him about the different boards and commissions that had openings. He was really interested in Shade Tree.
Yeah, I know Rick had to step down. I understand there'll be more people, someone else exiting at the end of the year. Carson said we'll be finished. So we may have more openings in Shade Tree in the future. But thanks to folks for stepping up. Any other discussion? All right, let's vote to approve the Shade Tree Commission appointment. All those in favor? Congratulations, Sharon.
And he just published a great new book, if you want to buy it in our first bookstore,
What's the
on Christian Buddhist relations, and I can't pull the title out.
What's her? Don't know what the
Top of my
bookstore.
head, but.
I mean, they may have more than one book in their bookstore on Christian Buddhist relations. Just
One narc who wrote it, that's for sure. Yeah, it's probably under somewhere.
All right. Tenant E. Lawnmower. That's a new, that is a discussing committee, so.
I move to recommend the capital expense of $12,800 for the purchase of the Toro Grandstand electric lawnmower.
Second.
Maggie, you want to this one?
So this was something that we have discussed with all of our small group meetings for inclusion in our capital plan for 2027. In keeping with our efforts to promote and engage in sustainable practices, we have electric lawn equipment for all of our public works small equipment. And our current lawnmower that we've been using is a residential grade lawnmower and not a commercial grade lawnmower. It is a riding mower as opposed to one of those ones that you can stand up on and ride behind. So we had discussed as including in next year's CIP the purchase of a new commercial grade stand behind riding lawnmower. The model that we were looking at is actually a kind of grade below this Toro model that we have as an option in front of us now. And we had budgeted between $15,000 and $20,000 in our CIP for next year. Obviously, we have not yet adopted that CIP, but that had been discussed and was generally supported by council. This week, our Public Works employee actually happened to find this Toro model available for sale. It is a used model, but it only has about 3 months of use on it, I think 300 hours of use, and it's still within its 5-year warranty. So it's 5-year warranty minus the 3 months that it's been in operation, so we still have the balance of that warranty. It is being sold by the manufacturer, so this is all very legitimate, very much on the up and up. And it's being sold for $12,800. So this is now a better model that we can get this year while we're still in peak growing season, and for a lot less than what we were planning on purchasing next year. So this is a really great opportunity for us to get a better model at a lower price much sooner. And in looking at our capital expenditures this year, I did some rough math based on the expenditures that we've had so far this year. So in our capital budget, not our CIP plan, but our capital budget, the money that we actually budgeted for capital projects, we budgeted $909,000. And so far this year, if we're projecting out the costs that we've already spent on capital projects and the projected cost of capital projects that we haven't yet purchased, we're looking at about $648,000 worth of capital expenditures this year, as opposed to a $909,000 outlay that we budgeted for. And that decrease in the total projected expenditures versus the total budgeted cost is because we were able to secure grant funding, is because we were able to secure additional cost savings through our Grayling Avenue sewer project by doing the lining project, and some other costs that we have been able to save on just through smart purchasing and good engineering and really excellent public works who can do things on a budget. So we are well within our budgeted amount to include this purchase within this year's capital expenditures. So staff are recommending that we go ahead and make the purchase this year. And then of course that comes off of our CIP since we will have this. And then we do project that these sorts of equipments do need to be replaced every 4 or 5 years or so anyway. So this mower will get us through the warranty, and then we'll take a look at replacing it in a couple of years when it comes due to replace that machinery.
Questions or concerns? All right, let's vote to authorize the capital expenditure on the electric lawnmower. All those in favor? personal accommodation to the employee who found this opportunity on their initiative. That's what we like to see, I think. So.
Great, thank you.
All right. So housekeeping now. We've got one major remaining item, which is the zoning discussion. We do have an executive session scheduled after this meeting, which hoping to keep to 15 or 20 minutes. Information item. These meetings aren't going to get any shorter, is my opinion. So my opinion is to press forward with the zoning discussion for a reasonable amount of time, and then move on to the half an hour or so of zoning discussion, depending on how it goes. It's taking everybody's temperature for proceeding here, since this is a discussion item.
Just want to make sure I'm understanding. So we're thinking about continuing with the zoning discussion for about a half hour, and then
moving on to the executive session.
Yep,
Yeah.
that sounds good
Okay.
to me.
All right, then we'll proceed along that length. It's a discussion item, so I don't think we need a motion. And I'll tell you, my battery on my laptop is dying out, so I would like to start looking. I don't think it's the right lens bigger now. It's the newer version of MacBook. So unless someone's got the current this year's model, it's not going to fly. So I may just borrow your computer at some point.
All right. What do you see on it?
Well, my plan is to go to the where are we? Policy discussion. I want to go to 5. I would like to go to 5B, governance and governance, which is the Montgomery Avenue District, the recommendations for Montgomery Avenue. There's fewer of them. I want to see where council is and see if we can. I'm gonna move to item F. We've already gone through A, B, C, and D. I'm just proposing we skip to F. Objections? So once again, I'm just going to start reading, and when I stop, let's talk. These are discussion items. All right. Height. First item F, height within current building envelope of 45 feet. The Narberth zoning code currently allows 45 feet of height by right in the 5B zoning district with up to 3 stories or with up to 4 stories depending on the specifics of the property and project. The 4 stories are only allowed in a lot where there's currently a historic property. So it's a very limited number of lots that can use that. The Narberth Planning Commission has recommended generally allowing 4 stories by right within the existing 45-foot height limit. This individual item would not change allowable height, setbacks, and any other standards. Thanks to me. The building footprint and building envelope would remain the same as allowed today. Summary of feedback. Council has heard from a range of residents regarding the proposal for additional height on Montgomery Avenue. Some residents generally support Montgomery Avenue's appropriate location for additional growth in building height. Some residents generally oppose additional building height. Some residents have indicated that they oppose additional height above the currently allowed 45 feet. Proposed council goal, council seeks to use the existing allowable building dimensions, height, and envelope more efficiently to support additional housing opportunities. Proposed council direction. Council directs Planning Commission to draft provisions that allow 4 stories by right in mixed-use buildings in the 5B district within the existing 45-foot height limit. This item will allow council to provide additional housing opportunities within the existing building dimensions already allowed in the 5B district today. All right. So we've talked about this. Anyone want to offer opinions against this? I think right now there's a proposed council direction, so I'm objecting to this proposed council direction. Okay. F2, ground floor residential. For real? That's it? I'm not hearing any objections. Okay, we're saying 4 stories, 45 feet.
4 stories, 45 feet.
Okay. F2, ground floor residential. The zoning code currently prohibits residential housing on the ground floor of mixed-use buildings in the 5B zoning district while allowing it on the upper floors. Planning Commission has recommended allowing housing on the ground floor of mixed-use buildings in the 5B district if the first 12 feet of depth of the building facing Montgomery Avenue is used as commercial space. And this is partly because we've heard directly from people who have commercial properties on Montgomery Avenue that renting deeper commercial spaces is difficult. Summary of feedback. Council has not received a substantial amount of feedback regarding allowing ground floor residential. That's accurate. But has received some comments in support. Council has received a range of feedback regarding housing more generally, including some residents in support of providing for more housing and some residents concerned with increasing housing density, parking, and vehicular traffic, among other things. I think that's right. I mean, we've got almost nothing in the resident comments about this particular change. Proposed council goal. Council recognizes that ground floor commercial space is important to walkability and quality of life in the Harbor. At the same time, council acknowledges that ground floor spaces with limited visibility from the street would be more difficult to rent and maintain as commercial spaces. Accordingly, council seeks to continue requiring commercial uses in mixed-use buildings while providing greater flexibility for additional housing opportunities in the rear areas of the ground floor. Proposed council direction. Council directs Planning Commission to incorporate provisions allowing housing on the ground floor of mixed-use buildings in the 5B district if the first 12 feet of depth of the building facing Montgomery Avenue is used as commercial space. This would allow council to provide additional housing opportunities within the existing building dimensions already allowed in 5B today, while maintaining ground floor commercial requirements along Montgomery Avenue. As I've said before, I think that a mixed-use building is what we like to encourage along Montgomery, and this is,
And
seems like it's the most
just to be
viable.
clear, this isn't requiring residential
No, it could be
to go
bigger.
beyond it. If they want, if the builder wants to have additional.
Right, they
commercial
need
space,
at least
can
12 feet
use
of commercial, but they can make the whole floor,
commercial.
if we're wrong and they want to make the whole floor commercial,
Yeah.
they have a big tenant.
Yeah, I know we have heard from people who didn't like the idea that it might be entirely residential,
Right.
an entirely residential building in Montgomery Ave. So, you know, preserving some out front on the Montgomery side seems correct.
I think planning commission is also, pro mixed use in general, so they're almost always going to recommend that mixed use be out there.
Is there any direction that's supposed to, like, I know that strip has things like, it has a gym, it has, does this have to be retail commercial space, or is it what's it intended? What's the flavor of commercial?
So just generally, a wide range of commercial uses are allowed on the ground floor of Montgomery Avenue. I think that that's probably partially due to just it hasn't received like the same level of like use attention as Haverford, but it's also partially due to the fact that any of the commercial uses that we don't like, we've zoned under Montgomery Avenue. So like all of your intensive use, because they have to exist somewhere, right? So like all of your intensive uses, are there, and then if you start kind of paring it down from there, you probably run into problems with state law because you then have it allowed it somewhere. So I think the hope is that if someone's doing a new building, that they're going to be trying to curate the commercial uses so that they're not super duper intensive ones and are ones that will be attractive to the walking environment and to.
But it could be anything. It could be anything that's currently on Montgomery Ave.
We're not proposing changing the rules that are already in place.
Michael, just so I understand, does Montgomery Avenue allow for industrial use up there?
I believe it does.
I don't think you can put it in a residential building. You can't put industrial.
Well, that's what I'm trying
So
to
this-
get to, is that this actually effectively makes it less likely that there would be an industrial use built if that somebody builds a mixed use.
Someone's
lot.
building.
There's not going to be a heavy
True.
industrial use on the ground.
You could put a commercial building in there and put an industrial use in that. There's some
Right, but
standards.
you can do that now.
Right, you could do that now. This would encourage mixed use,
Right.
which is
That's
what we
my point.
prefer. Yeah, it would make it more attractive. If there's a more attractive option, they're not going to put in a factory or something.
Right.
Narberth is not a great spot for a factory. Okay, any further discussion of this change? Any concerns with it? Okay. All right. The one where I'm sure there'll be discussion. Bonus height for middle income housing in Green Mountain. The Narberth zoning code currently allows a maximum of 45 feet of height in the 5B zoning district. Narberth Planning Commission has recommended allowing building in the 5B district to achieve 10 feet of additional height, one effective additional story of height, up to 55 feet, in exchange for 1, meeting the borough's green energy standards, and 2, providing 10% of the total number of housing units as middle income housing affordable at up to 80% of the area median income. The Planning Commission further recommends requiring the additional story to be set back 10 feet from the front facade and 10 feet from the rear facade. Summary of feedback. Council has heard from a range of residents regarding the proposal for additional height on Montgomery Avenue. Some residents generally support Montgomery Avenue as an appropriate location for additional growth in building height. Some residents generally oppose additional building height. Some residents have indicated they oppose additional height above the currently allowed 45 feet. Council has also heard from residents who have communicated concerns regarding the impact a fifth story might have on adjacent residential neighbors and on the perceived scale of the building. Proposed council goal. Council desires to take a context-sensitive approach that achieves the underlying goal of the additional height and the associated green building standards in middle-income units, while directly addressing for adjacent residents' concerns by requiring the fifth story be stepped back a minimum distance from the residential neighbors' property lines, and by providing council the authority to move the fifth story even farther away from the neighbors' property lines. So this is something that we haven't really discussed in detail, but it's in the proposal. Proposed council direction. Council directs Planning Commission to draft the following provisions. Bonus height for middle-income housing and green building. Council directs Planning Commission to draft provisions that would increase the maximum building height from 45 feet to 55 feet for buildings in the 5B that meet the following standards. Middle-income housing. If the development includes rental housing, the owner must provide 10% of the total residential units in the building as middle-income housing for households earning up to 80% of the AMI for 40 years from the date of the certificate of occupancy. Green building standards. The owner must meet the green building bonus standards provided in the zoning code that already exist, including building the most recent version of the International Energy Conservation Code, prohibiting with narrow exceptions fossil fuel hookups, requiring the building to acquire energy from a renewable energy provider, and meeting the borough's EV charging standards. Furthermore, compatibility standards. Council directs Planning Commission draft provisions including the following at a minimum, and to provide any additional recommendations as appropriate. Compatibility applicability. We intend the proposed compatibility standards to mitigate the visual impact of additional height along property lines of triggering properties that are within a zoning district that is more restrictive than 5B and that contain a one-family or two-family dwelling use. So the triggering property would be a neighboring property that is in a more restrictive zoning district that is a one or two-family building. Height setbacks. The proposed compatibility standards would require any floor above 45 feet of height to be set back 10 feet from the front facade and 35 feet from the property line of a triggering property as defined. Height step back exceptions. Council proposes allowing the following narrow exceptions to the standard height setback requirements. Council front facade encroachment. Council could approve an encroachment of 1 foot onto the front facade step back for every 1 foot of additional step back provided from triggering properties if council determines that the additional step back is necessary to provide additional visual buffering. So basically, this shifts it forward if it seems like it'd be a good idea. Shifts the story toward the street, toward Montgomery, away from residential, but while keeping it the same size as the current proposal. Triggering property waiver rights. The deed owner of a triggering property may waive or reduce their individual right to a 35-foot step back by submitting a notarized statement to the borough. Such a statement would only modify the step back in relation to the signatory properties in line and would not affect any other triggering property line. Okay. And then we also have the buffering standards, which I think would go with this. So I'm going to go ahead and read those two. Buffering standards, the zoning code, the SALDO, and the landscaping code currently establish lighting and landscape buffering standards for new development. Planning Commission has to date not made recommendations on changes to these standards, but residents have raised a lot of concerns. Council has heard from residents who communicated concerns about the visual impact of new construction and lighting adjacent to their homes, and that they do not believe the current standards sufficiently address their concerns. Council seeks to address for residents' concerns and provide for an overall package that strengthens lighting and buffering standards. Proposed council direction. We direct Planning Commission to review the current landscape buffering and lighting standards that currently apply and to consider and draft provisions that improve those standards, including improving lighting standards for building facades facing triggering properties, including evaluating lighting temperature and source of light regulations, specifying a default landscaping standard in developments that provide greater than 45 feet of height. Applicants can request council approval to meet one of the other code-established options rather than default. This would be a larger buffer than just a basic hedge, something taller and more mature. I didn't know what we'd be asking for here, but a more mature tree already.
One of like the menu items in there is basically like an evergreen of a certain
So
size.
we'd be picking the most substantial option that's already in our code and making it default.
That's the concept.
Okay. Regulating rooftop and roof deck lighting in developments that provide greater than 45 feet of height in order to limit lighting trespass to neighboring residential properties. All right, so should we allow the 5th floor at all? And then there's, if we're gonna allow the 5th floor, what are appropriate standards for setbacks and buffering? So let's talk about 5th floor at all.
Yes, I'll go first.
Yeah.
No surprise. So I think it's big picture and then more specific. I feel, and I know other people disagree with me, that by giving basically the 4th floor and the residential option on the ground floor, that we're essentially giving the developers a floor and a half of additional residential space. I recognize that the 5th floor only comes to play if we want to get the affordable housing, which is important for me. But I've yet to be convinced that, especially with these other changes, that the trade-off couldn't be you can have the residential ground floor in exchange for the affordable housing. I continue to not be convinced that giving a 5th floor in exchange for affordable housing is necessary or even desirable. I'll note that the Planning Commission itself said that 3 stories is sort of on the cusp of not sustainability, but viability. Viability. So if 3 floors is on the cusp of viability, it seems to me the 4 floors should be per se viable, according to the Planning Commission's own standards. So I think that, I continue to feel that I have yet to see a significant justification to go to 5 floors. I'll note that, while I don't believe that we should be locked in forever for what the standards were from 1999 or 2000, that when the Rite Aid lot in particular was developed, there was a lot of community feedback. We actually won an award because the plans got scaled down. There were concerns from the Lower Merion side of the street about us sort of not keeping with the historical character of Montgomery Avenue itself. We don't have it seems to me, even considering an extra floor when we don't have the Montgomery County corridor study yet and don't know the impact of the additional height on that means to some extent I want to see that study and I want to see what they want to propose in and around the Narberth part where we may be narrowing it to 1 lane, etc. It doesn't address necessarily concerns about ingress and egress that I think is a necessary part of revising 5B. And I do appreciate all of the mitigation. I guess that's sort of the big picture for me. And then the smaller pictures, for me, the devil will always be in the details in terms of the mitigation measures that are proposed to mitigate the damage here. Maybe damage isn't the right word. The effects of I don't want to hold it. So the impact of going to 5 stories, which I think it's also true for more dense 4-story residential, and I know that the folks who live along in the sort of adjacent area, are concerned about those impacts. I think we've learned a little bit from the construction that's gone on at Margaret Square, particularly in terms of light pollution, that I think we need to address whether or not we go to 5 floors. Like, this kind of implies a quid pro quo for 5 floors to some of these measures, and I think those measures should be looked at whether we go to 4 floors or 5 floors.
I want to give everybody a
Yeah,
chance to
so
speak.
I was just about to say, so
Thanks.
that's sort of my big picture and devil in the details view.
All right, I'm just going to go around.
Okay. I hear the concerns, and I'm agreeing that there's a lot to talk about here. I guess the reason I would favor the 5-story option is because I know that it does. The more you add to a building, the more you reduce the overall per unit cost of construction. I think when Planning Commission was talking about 3 stories being on the edge of viability, they were talking about a building at all. Like it's hard for any developer in town to propose a quality building in this town anywhere, because we've effectively limited in three stories, and they're not able to gather that much capital or put that much care into quality, unfortunately. And 3-story buildings end up being kind of, on the cheaper end. I think we're kind of seeing that at 230 Haverford. The developer has, for all I know, it seems like he's not moving ahead. I think everybody knows that. He's not moving, you can't make that pencil with the 3 stories that he's allowed now. And I really feel like much of that is because put too much constraints on that building, on the development of that lot. And if there were fewer, you have more to bring to the bank, you have more you can invest in your property, and you have more you can contribute to these asks we have in terms of green building standards and in terms of affordability standards. So I would tend to buy that argument that a 5th story is a good option. I have measured the building next door personally with a ruler, which is that gym building that's like right up against the Rite Aid.
Krinsky.
No. It's the.
I know what you mean.
Like
Directly adjacent.
Yeah, I can't remember the address. It is, I believe it is 43 feet tall, and it's set up somewhat from the road, so there's some additional footage there. If you want to picture what 45 feet looks like, look at that building as you're driving by, the one right next to the Rite Aid. A 5th story set back 10 feet from the road, I think is easy to picture as well. A 5th story set back from an adjacent property, I think we're saying, what, like up to
35 feet from a residential.
I feel like that's got to be very inconspicuous at that point, with those kind of buffering standards. That's why I would tend to favor that. Now, I should mention that I also would like to know for sure. I don't want to just hand out things to developers so they can build more and rake in more cash. And we've been talking about this in F&A, Finance Administration, having members of the Planning Commission come in and talk us through some of these reasons, some of the math on this, like what justifies the recommendation in terms of the ask that we're getting back. And I believe we have some possibilities for that coming up. Sadly, we couldn't do it before this meeting, so it's a little bit, I just like to put a pin in that in case we don't come to a broad agreement tonight. There is that possibility that we can talk about.
All I'll be pretty quick. I mean, I would favor a fifth story with no restrictions, just on its merits. I think that more folks in Narberth is good. I think that Montgomery Avenue is a very busy corridor that is already suited for a lot of people in and out. And I have no problem with an incremental 10 feet of height for a building. I think that the proposed lighting and building standards make a lot of sense. You know, trying to make sure that the lighting doesn't disrupt residents nearby. You know, the step back, short. I mean, but like I said, I would favor it on its merits. So I think that the middle income housing requirement and the green building standards. I mean, I'm going to push for the green building standards in the first place. So I obviously support those. But, Gene, I don't know what to say. A little bit on the favor of this.
I would support the five stories too. I agree with Jim that I think it would result in a better build, a higher quality build, if we allow that. Also, I do want to speak to, well, also we heard from the community that like affordability is an issue, and in terms of providing that supply, that's one path, but also providing that near-term affordability and being able to achieve that, I think that's important. I also heard things a little bit differently at the Planning Commission when they were talking about that in terms of the viability of the affordability component for the 4th story versus the 5th story. I heard that a little bit differently. I heard them say that 4th story could be very remotely possible, but that a 5th story would definitely be possible. So, and then I do want to talk about the traffic component. Just a little bit further down on Montgomery Avenue on Marion Road, there's an 11-story apartment building. So in terms of scale, I don't think we're talking about the type of scale that the rest of Montgomery Avenue already has. Also, it used to be a Rite Aid right there, which has tons of traffic, daily traffic in and out. So I really don't see how housing would actually create more traffic impact than what was already existing on that site previously. And then in terms of, I do support all of the, I heard all of the concerns from the Shirley Road residents. I went to the backyards, looked at what it looked like. So I do think that's a valid concern. And I think these setback requirements and the buffering requirements, the lighting requirements, those address those concerns. And I do think Jim is correct in that if you picture that 45 feet with the existing adjacent building and you have a 10-foot setback, I don't think it will be as visually jarring to the Shirley Road residents. So I do think that it does address those concerns.
Gene?
Yeah, I mean, Montgomery Avenue today is not our best work.
Design awards notwithstanding.
Yeah, I was aware of the design award, and it always struck me as odd because I don't know that anyone would go by that site previously and think of it as a particularly stellar example of urban design. And when I say I don't think Montgomery Avenue is our best work, I mean I think that our predecessors on this dais 100 years ago made a series of bad decisions that caused Montgomery Avenue to be what it is today. And to me, the vision for Montgomery Avenue is probably something more akin to Lancaster Avenue, which itself has tremendous volume of traffic going through it, but it also is a vibrant streetscape where you have a lot of
foot traffic. And where people feel comfortable even though there is a lot of throughput on that roadway. And I think that's important for us to treat Montgomery Avenue as the mixed-use corridor that the comprehensive plan describes it as. And I know we've connected a lot of kind of this conversation to the comp plan, and I feel strongly that that connective tissue is legitimate and accurate, but I know that there's been some arguments over people reading certain things differently. I don't think there's any daylight. Like, the goal for Montgomery Avenue in the comp plan is like very clear. Enable successful redevelopment of Montgomery Avenue as a mixed-use corridor. And I think it's specifically because what we want it to be is another place where we can have walkable businesses and to move towards that sort of vision, because we have the downtown, which is excellent. We need to cultivate that. I selfishly would love to see kind of like a little live-work district on Woodbine again, that what it once was. And then Montgomery Avenue, because we don't have that many spaces, so to kind of just have one major district of the Borough kind of continue along the way it is, I don't think would be a good decision on our part. And why do I say that vision? Because I think that what we have before us helps us move in that direction incrementally. I think that there is a positive good to having more human beings living on Montgomery Avenue to help us populate that streetscape, to put pressure on us and on our successors. I've mentioned this a couple times, including earlier today, that as frustrating as it can be sometimes. I mean, we heard earlier today, right, from a resident who lives in downtown who's very concerned about the downtown. We may disagree with some of those things, right, but having a planted constituency in a space has more eyes on that street, more people who will show up and advocate for having a good walking environment and all of these other sorts of things. And I think that a Montgomery Avenue residential constituency that really hasn't existed in the past, other than, some like the old school single family conversions, I think is a positive good and will help us support additional active commercial uses that will then synergistically support the rest of the corridor. I also think that so just in terms of getting us to a better place, step by step, I don't know if I'm going to live to see the full Montgomery Avenue corridor, but hopefully, a generation or so will. But you won't get there if you don't take some steps first. And then I think that as well, we passed a historic district because we cared about the built environment of much of the town. But the historic district also makes it difficult to add more housing. And so to me, Montgomery Avenue was a natural place to say, let's think a bit more carefully about trying to get some additional housing opportunities there, because we know that we have lowered the opportunities in other places across the borough. And there's lots of other reasons why I think that this is important, but those are kind of two major elements. And you've talked about, the benefits that the population bring us, so I won't repeat all of those because they've been talked about.
If you don't mind, Cindy and Joe, I know we're already past the time.
Yeah.
Everybody speak.
And I just wanted to say, doing that while working productively to try to address for the very real concerns that folks have articulated, I think we can hold both of those things together.
Thank you.
I've shared my concerns with the 55 feet, so no need to reiterate some of them.
All right.
Just to clarify, we mentioned that 4 stories, maybe 5 stories is needed for viability. We just had a presentation on a 2-story building, and so I just, for people who might be listening online, there might be some cognitive dissonance of why there's a two-story building being built, and we're saying it's impossible to build less than 3 or 4 stories.
I think we were talking about the affordability and
Nope.
No, I actually do think that this is an anomaly. And there's a number of reasons why I also think that planning for 5 stories is important for the future.
No, I'm sorry. I'm not saying
Yeah.
no to 5 stories. I'm not saying no to 4 stories.
Yeah.
I just want to make an objective statement.
No, absolutely.
We're saying,
Yeah.
you know, it's
I do hear
impossible
you.
to build less than 4 stories, but there's 2 stories going up.
Yeah.
I think that he was very lucky to secure an anchor tenant like the liquor store. I think that you know, having a massive tenant on the ground floor makes a lot of things viable. Like, I think you could probably put a single-story commercial building on Montgomery as well. People have said, well, that might end up being a car wash. If you know, that would be a good location for a car. I had a car wash company contact me and say, hey, we're interested in that site over there. We want to put in a car wash. So there are other things that could occur on these properties. But it would take either, I think, a really strong tenant or just a pure commercial building on its own.
Thank you. Okay.
Anyway, I don't mean to
That's
cut off your
helpful.
speech.
Thanks.
Go
No,
ahead.
it was a question. Thank you. Wanted to share also that, I lost it. Dang it. Gene, you brought up a great point about an 11-story building in Bryn Mawr on Marion Avenue. Just to be clear, it backs up on the train tracks and it's next to an apartment building. So I just want to make sure we're comparing apples and apples. This building backs up on other houses. There's just one difference between the Marion Avenue, Bryn Mawr, and here. A really important point, but I just wanted to make sure to call that out. And I keep grabbing and missing my other points. And we'll come back. So, and Mike, you brought up a lot of great points that I won't repeat, and I think are just very important about setbacks and the importance of the impact on the neighbors. The last point is, when we talk about 4 stories, 5 stories, sometimes we say we're specifically talking about the Rite Aid building, but we're talking about the whole Montgomery corridor.
Yeah.
I think that this would apply to. So it's not just one building. It would be the whole corridor. Thanks. That's all.
1038, 3 out of 3 recall, not bad there, Joe.
Hey, thanks.
Joe, I am going to put you on the spot slightly and ask you what you do think of the proposals for the 5th story or the proposals for I mean, you didn't raise any concerns during the earlier discussion, so what is your position?
I don't have a position. Do I need to have a position today?
You will, we will vote on this, so at that point,
I'm
you'll need to have a
aware.
position.
We're not voting.
We are not voting today.
Please go easy on the rolling your eyes and.
We are not voting today.
Yeah, we're not voting today.
No, we are
Good.
not voting today.
Thanks.
Okay. You do not have a position at this point?
That's correct.
All right.
I just want to say, I'm not a Robert's Rules guy, but if I were Cindy, I would be very offended at you asking Joe that, because when she asked everyone for, are you going to take to account citizen feedback, you shut it down. So just, I think that was an unfair question if you're going to have 2 different views on different questions from different people.
Yeah, I mean, this is supposed to be discussion around the table, not vote.
It's true, but I mean, we have to, I am the president, it is my job to bring us to a vote. So it is helpful for me to know where council members stand. I need to know in advance, it helps me.
This is my inherent problem before we all get mad at each other.
I'm not gonna.
Which I'm usually the first person to kind of, hang on, please, before we all get mad at each other, let's just sit and say, let's not put each other on the spot. I think we've been having a good discussion so far, and it's getting late, and so I know that when I get late and hungry, I also get angry. And in this moment, let's give each other some grace.
to know.
Michael, I just want to say, this is my concern with this document in general, was it is, and I think I articulated this in an email, there's both what I'll call sort of general policy discussion, which I have no problem dealing with, but then embedded in those are specific recommendations. And I've had a problem with this document having those specific recommendations, because I think those, we can agree all sort of on our intentions and what we think generally are good for the borough. For me, the devil's always been in the details. It's always been, this has to be a package deal of a whole set of things, and by splitting them up, I think it skews the discussion, and that's all I'll say. Because I agree with you, it's late, and
I apologize. My goal as president here is to try to bring this to a successful vote. So,
What's a successful vote?
A successful vote is something that as many council members as possible agree is the right approach. So I'm trying to figure out a way to set create a proposal for planning commission to proceed that as many of us as possible are going to vote for. That is what I'm trying to craft here based on the feedback I'm hearing and based on, it's why we're gathering this feedback and proceeding through it so that I can figure out what's going to pass. I would rather not propose something and have it be voted down or something. You know, that's a failure on my part. When something comes to the table and it gets voted down, something has gone wrong in my opinion. So I'm trying to avoid that, and that's why I'm asking these questions. Anyway, that's my explanation. We are past the time I had suggested, so unless anyone objects, I'd like to close this discussion at this time, and I'll take a motion to adjourn into executive session.
You don't want to do...
Oh, I'm sorry. I do not want to actually do the committee reports at this time, but I will. Is there any objection if we pass over the committee reports?
I did want to bring up the idea about scheduling some information.
All right, we'll talk about that as new business. Go ahead and give us your proposal. We'll move to new business this time.
Oh, okay. So, I mean, I think this is a topic that will shed some light on what we've just been talking about and have people from planning commissions, especially Aaron Graves, who I think has expertise in this area. I've talked to Aaron. He's willing to do this. He's willing to do this in an open meeting. We've just been having trouble scheduling him because he wasn't available to come to F&A. He wasn't available for, he's not going to be in attendance at the next planning meeting in July either. However, I have run it by both Maggie and Fred that we could possibly retain the July 2nd workshop meeting that's already been advertised. It seems we do not have a quorum of council members available for that meeting. However, if we ran it as an informational meeting with Aaron as probably the only topic, the only item on the agenda, he could give his presentation. Those of us who were there, I think Mike's available for that, be able to ask questions. It'll be recorded. We'll be able to view it afterward. And since this is already an already advertised meeting time, I think it's a sort of an opportune moment to do this. I mean, it's not opportune in the sense that it didn't precede this meeting, but considering we haven't, it's still kind of up in the air, I think it's still valuable to do, and I would like to propose we do that.
Okay. So you've heard the proposal. I think it's everybody agrees that this is appropriate. This is something we can do. Anybody have objections to doing this? This would just be a Q&A essentially, and there would be no deliberation, obviously, because there wouldn't be, well, you could still talk amongst yourself. There wouldn't be a quorum of council. We can't do any official business. No votes.
It would still be a workshop.
Yeah, it'd be a workshop meeting. There'd be no votes of any kind, but it would be informational only, essentially.
But you wouldn't, I mean, could you get caught deliberating in that meeting? I think that's where you get
There's only going to be,
Oh.
well, there's not a quorum in the room, so.
There's no deliberation.
Yeah.
Okay.
But it's just going to be a question and answer session anyway. There's not going to be any action.
Who besides Jim and me or Val, like, are there 4 of us?
What date is this? I'm sorry.
July 2nd.
I'm not.
I mean, I might be able to zoom in.
But we have to court in the room for.
No, you don't. That's the idea. It's the whole point.
For purposes of having Queens County meeting, but for sunshine purposes, you cannot have policy discussions or take official action. Policy discussions, deliberating on policy discussions.
So this would be a meeting without a quorum. Is anybody else, can anybody else make this?
I may be able to, but if someone else was going to be there, then I can step away because I don't want to cause more issues.
And Cindy, you can't. Are you interested in it? All right. You know what? We should pick another time. It's only the 2 of you, and maybe me. Is that helpful?
No, it's not.
No, it's actually better for us to do it on the 2nd.
Should we? Do we want to record it and make it an official meeting, or just?
I think that
It
would
is- it is an official meeting.
Yeah.
It's an official workshop meeting.
All right.
No
We
quorum.
can't take
Record
votes
it.
and we can't deliberate.
Do we have any? I mean, Maggie, you have to be.
You're not taking
There's
official
somebody-
actions at workshops anyway.
Right.
Typically not. Occasionally we do.
So-
but-
Well, you would not be able to do that.
Right. No, we would not be able to do that. There don't need to be.
But as long as it's advertised and it's an open meeting,
Okay.
you would be able to deliberate at that time.
Okay. I mean,
So we just won't vote.
do you have objections to like staying for a meeting? It's just 2 people, or having somebody.
No, this is the only opportune time to do it, and it's already an advertised meeting. We advertise it at the beginning of the year.
Okay.
You know, as John said, we don't take votes anyway,
All right.
typically in work sessions, so.
So, okay. All right, so I'm not hearing objections to proceeding with this. If you have specific questions, why don't you email them, and then he can also answer those questions at that session, as well as in response. These are specific questions about how bonuses work with developers and minimum viability requirements for projects, because he's a professional architect who works on these sorts of things. So if you have questions about that sort of thing, email him, and otherwise, they'll talk to him at the meeting. Okay. All right, so I'm hearing no objections to that. Good. Any other new business, old business, comments for the good of council?
I just want to say real quickly, I went to a naturalization ceremony last night. It was incredibly moving. If you ever had the opportunity to attend one of these, you should do it. I don't know who could ever sponsor one here, but I would love to be able to do that in a big room. I think they do it in Pod County, this was running media, and I think it's a pretty profoundly moving experience, and I would love to just figure out, maybe if we talk to Neil or other county commissioners, if we could do it in our big public space here, it would be pretty cool.
Okay. Yeah, I don't know what the federal requirements are for that sort of thing.
Yeah, I mean, we were in the media state courthouse, so it doesn't have to be a federal building, we were just in the courthouse,
strictly in the
police,
courthouse.
Delaware County, it was
Okay.
the Delaware County judges were
It's
presiding.
late.
Yeah.
Thank you for bringing that up.
All right.
Super fast one. I was invited to a meeting with the American Legion, Narberth Athletic Association, the Outsiders. There's another group there, I can't remember. But we decided we were going to form a little group called the Narberth Sports and Recreation Committee or Commission, to start raising money to fix Narberth Park stuff, field, blah, 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 blah. So I don't know if I will be officially on it or not. Just I gotta figure all that stuff out. But right now I'm sort of a guiding hand to move things along. More info to come.
How's that different than fungi though? Friends of
Sports.
It sounds like there's a specific,
Sport.
yeah.
Well, why doesn't
When
somebody?
I get more information, I'll bring the people or the information
Yeah.
here. But
Yeah,
wanted to
I
go-
think you should invite, once it gets set up, you should invite somebody to come to an FNA meeting and talk about what their goals are and what they're interested in doing.
Yeah, I just wanted transparency for the group here.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
All right. I'll take a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, discussion? Voting to adjourn. All those in favor? All right, meeting is adjourned. There will be an executive session after this meeting to talk about a potential tenant for the space that is being vacated at 201 St. Line. All right.